Court has returned from executive session. I want to apologize for the tardiness tonight and getting started a little bit late. Mr. Rowan, any conclusions or resolutions to report?
No, sir.
Okay, in that case, I'd ask everybody to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and the moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd ask a moment of silence now for your specific intentions. Okay, Mr. Rowan, public hearing.
Yes, our first item tonight is we have a public hearing on our waste receptacle text amendment. Ms. LeCount?
KZA 2016-01 is a recommendation by the Colerain Township Zoning Commission to modify Section 12.5.2 of the Colerain Township Zoning Resolution to allow residents to store waste receptacles in the front driveway of their property if they're stored against the house. This text amendment was initiated by the Zoning Commission on December 15th, 2015. It would specifically allow for the placement of waste receptacles 32 gallons or larger in the front driveway if stored against the house. This placement is currently prohibited. Chapter 12.5 of the zoning resolution governs the placement of trash containers on agricultural or residential properties, and the intent is to screen unsightly trash containers from public view on days on which trash is not being collected. Since the adoption of this standard, there has been instances where it's not feasible for residents to store waste receptacles in the side or rear yard due to physical barriers or the nature of the housing type. This text amendment is proposing to add language to Section 12.5.2 and would read as follows. Waste receptacles that are 32 gallons or larger in size shall only be permitted in the side or rear yards or in the front driveway if stored against the house. Staff wants to note your attention to Section 12.5.3 of the zoning resolution, which does specifically address waste receptacles or dumpsters in excess of 2 yards in volume of capacity, which is roughly 400 gallons or larger. This proposed text amendment would not allow for those much larger containers to be stored in the front of residential properties without being screened or without temporary approval being granted by the zoning department through the permits. Hamilton County Regional Planning Commission heard this case on February 4th, 2016, and did recommend approval, and the Colerain Township Zoning Commission held a public hearing on February 16th, 2016, and recommended approval in a unanimous vote.
Thank you. Before I ask for motions for the public comment, I'd be remiss if I didn't welcome Steve Reutelschoffer, who's our new Public Services Director, and it's his first meeting. I should have welcomed you at the outset, and I didn't do that. Glad you're here. Glad to be here. Okay. Is there a motion to open up the public hearing?
So moved.
Chair will second.
Mr. Ingerhees?
Aye.
Mr. Inscombe?
Aye.
Mr. Ritter?
Aye. Anybody here that would like to speak for or against the text amendment?
Is your mic on, Jeff?
It is.
The only comment I'm going to make with regard to this is that as long as they keep all the trash in the receptacle, as long as they keep all the trash in the receptacle and not have the receptacle and then a bunch of stuff laying next to it. I mean, that was the idea, to hide the screen to start with, and so we're doing this to accommodate, I guess, the bigger dumpsters or various things that's going on with with our
contract
waste, getting rid of our waste. But I guess what I would say is nothing should be outside of it. It needs to be all in. Otherwise, it's just people going to pile stuff up high, and it looks like heck. That's all.
Thanks.
As I spoke to Ms. LeCount earlier, my comments this evening is Colerain. Welcome to Fairmount, Lower Fairmount, Price Hill, North Side. I don't know if any Avians ever drove up Quebec Avenue before garbage day or after garbage day, but it's a mess. And they stay out there for days on days. I drove that area for 40 years, so I can vouch for welcome to Lower Falmouth. I'm against this. I don't think we should have waste containers sitting out in front of our garbage or our garage, 95 gallons. We should have thought, and the zoning people done an excellent job on this here amendment. I congratulate them. But I told them then, 95 gallons was too big. Why not we go for 65 gallons? It's just making Rumpke's job easier instead of picking up 2 or 3 containers that are 32, 35 gallons. They've got 1 container to pick up. Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes, ma'am. Hi.
I've never been here.
Welcome. It's okay.
Could you please state your name for the record?
Tamara Kunkel. I've lived here all my life. I actually worked for the city of Springdale in the building department, and it was always such a big issue for the trash cans to be screened or pulled in back, and we fought hard for that. And so I think it's going to be an unsightly appearance for Colerain Township and hard to reverse once it's instated. So I just want to make a plea that you would try to create a screening. I think that it will get out of hand, especially in the smaller neighborhoods. And I think it's something that Colerain will be looked down on. Thank you.
Thanks for making the time to come tonight.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. Is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Underhies?
Aye.
Mr. Inscoe?
Aye.
Mr. Rhodes?
Hi. Ms. LeCount, any thoughts on her comments, especially the screening?
The screening was actually discussed at the Regional Planning Commission. I think one of the challenges that we have is in some of our smaller neighborhoods, the driveways run right up to the house, and it's not necessarily towards the garage. And particularly with the new waste agreement with Rumpke, with those larger containers, for a lot of properties, it is going to be difficult to get them to the side or rear of the house. This is requiring screening, I think, is going to be an additional burden that some of our residents won't be able to really meet those standards of. But it is a concern, I think, that is worth discussion with respect to screening and whether or not we think that's appropriate to require that for our 96-gallon standard trash cans that will be used now by everyone in the township.
I usually bristle when people talk about the Constitution as a living document, but in this case, our zoning text certainly is a living document. And as we get into the implementation of the waste district, there's nothing to prevent us from tweaking it as we need to. Are we protected if there is adequate room around the side to require that in the text as it's drafted?
Not necessarily, no. This would outright allow this to be stored wherever the resident chooses,
Why
as long
can't
as
we do that?
it's the house. We could.
Because it's too subjective, perhaps? And
I think
but there's really not,
enforcement might be a bit more of a challenge if that were the case.
Okay. What I would suggest is that we pass this and then revisit it in a year, maybe even 6 months, and assess some of the concerns that have been addressed tonight, if they materialized or not, and if they have, then we need to pivot and address it.
Trustee Ritter, if I may comment, it's not only the waste contract that's driving this. For a couple years now, we've received complaints about residents storing the trash receptacles in front of their house in violation of our zoning code. And unfortunately, we just haven't been able to enforce it due to the magnitude and the staffing that we have. So it was also another contributing factor was just, if we're not able to enforce something in the code, then we need to evaluate whether we need to change the code. Because if we're not going to change the code, then we need to do a better job of enforcing it. So while I think the delivery of these receptacle bins may cause some others to put their bins out front that maybe didn't previously, this has been a problem for us for a while in our lack of enforcement of our existing code.
Roy?
Another part of this enforcement piece
since the police department got involved with enforcing, is when we get out and investigate we're finding a lot of the folks that were violating the order were some of our elderly folks. They didn't have the capabilities to haul the can into the backyard and then back out. So they were storing it in the front of the house so they could get from the front of the house out to the street. So there was a human element to this too. There were people that just were incapable based on, the husband passed or they're elderly and they just couldn't get the can out. It was easier for them to store it in front. So there's quite a few issues that certainly surround this one.
But I do like your suggestion of revisiting it.
Yeah.
What was your name again? I'm sorry. Tamara.
If I may, we had the same issue.
Could you please come to the microphone so we can hear you?
Sorry, thank you.
Sorry.
You're fine, you're fine.
I have a soft voice.
It's okay.
We had the same issue in Springdale, and we were very compassionate to that. And I would suggest maybe some extreme conditions that a certain person could apply to leave it there, but not in general everybody in Colerain. I think that it just opens up a door that Colerain will not look good with. I think it's really worth thinking about. In fact, I heard information from the Hamilton County Planning, and they were surprised. At least Dave Oakham was.
You said you're in Springdale or Springfield Township?
I was with Springdale.
You're with Springdale. You wouldn't happen to have any enforcement or code statistics that you could share with us, obviously at a later date or something? Just, I think that would be really helpful for us.
What type of statistics?
Oh, anything you can give us. I agree. I think it's going to be tough to enforce some of these
It
things.
is tough to enforce in Colerain.
That's my biggest concern. Yeah.
But still, once you change the code because it's too hard to enforce, that just opens the door for people to put them out there. And I think if you leave it the way it is, and then people who have an issue with it may be coming to you and getting a special permission, that makes sense, and it's still compassionate.
I appreciate that.
Okay, thank you.
I think that makes more sense to allow exceptions rather than have a blanket permission to have the waste receptacles out there in the front of the house.
So you're not in favor of moving forward with the text amendment?
Right. I would favor tabling this at the time.
All right. Mr. Transco?
Yeah, I like that. So, can we move this until the next meeting? Push it out
I would defer to Mr. Barbier as far as what the next legal steps are that we have to take.
There's a time limit in the zoning resolution as to when you have to act on. I think you have to act within 30 days, I believe, at the longest after the zoning.
And we want something in place when the contract goes into effect on April 1. Could we pass this as drafted and then still revisit it and tweak it, at the next meeting?
Well, if you pass it, then if you want to change it again, you're probably going to have to go back through the process.
Okay, what would you estimate the process to be? Give me months.
I think 60 days to 90 days in that range.
That's not bad.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah, so I'll offer a motion to approve the text amendment as drafted with the provision that we revisit this within 90 days.
Second.
Mr. Reed?
Aye.
Mr. Inscoe?
Aye.
Mr. Ritter?
Aye.
Thank you for that.
Okay, I've been looking forward to this for a long time. Public safety benchmarking, Director Malloy.
Thank you. We are too. We appreciate the opportunity to come before the board and the community to let them know what we've been doing and what we've got going on. So, benchmarking, what does that mean? Who do we compare ourselves against? This is the 14 largest communities in the state of Ohio. We're comparing ourselves against 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and Springfield Township. 11 is Hamilton. Westchester is 12. Springfield is 13. We're 14. Green Township is right behind us at 58,370 with an area of 27 square miles. And then Springfield Township is a community of 36,319, but they are a community that borders us, and you often hear people speak before the board and make comparisons to Springfield Township. So we believe it's important for us to, as public safety leaders, to compare what we believe to be like communities. So really, from our perspective, what you're going to hear tonight is each one of us provides you with specifics about our roles and responsibilities, the efforts and the services of our agencies, quality versus salaries and financial comparisons, but in respect to our two departments, our fire department and our police department are organizationally structured very similarly. There's a chief of each department with an administrative command staff of 2 officers. The fire department staffs with a deputy chief and an assistant chief, while the police department staffs with 2 lieutenants. They have equal value. They are part of that command staff, and they work for that chief of police or the chief of the department from the fire department. We serve a community of approximately 59,000 residents. We have a staff of our police department in 2014 with 49 police officers. We had 54 firefighters. It's important for us to understand that within the fire service, we are a part-time, full-time partnership. In 2014, we staffed with 15 full-time employees and 18 part-time. And that evolution since then has reached a point where we're 18 full-time and 15 part-time. We serve our community with approximately 70% of our run volume in Colerain Township being EMS, emergency medical services. That is definitely a different time than 25 years ago when fire departments were technically fire departments. And what you have in this community is a fire department and EMS service that is what I call second to none. When I got in here and I started learning about what these men and women provide, and they tell me, when I talk to the medical directors from the University of Cincinnati, they basically said that when you receive the service of a Colerain Township paramedic, you're going to receive the service that you would get or receive from an emergency room at a hospital. That first 45 minutes of that emergency room can be transitioned to the level of service you're going to get, whether it be on the interstate, your bedroom, or the side of the road, or in a ditch in the backyard. You're going to get that level of service. And that means a lot to our community when you talk about the services and the quality of the things that we provide. As a public safety director, when you made the decision as the board to put me in this position in 2013, none of our peer communities had anyone serving in this role. You challenged me with some very specific course of action: innovation, communications, drive change, smart, responsible fiscal decisions, take over and push this organization and this partnership between police and fire to a whole new level. I'm here to tell you today that that's what we're doing. That's what we've done. That's what we've accomplished. In 2014, peer cities, Hamilton and peer cities of Middletown, also promoted their chiefs of police into the roles of Director of Public Safety. We today meet on a regular basis to discuss the issues that public safety directors have to serve in this dual role. As a peer group, we always want to know what salaries are. Hamilton makes $120,000. Middletown made $108,000. The salary for me in 2014 was $95,000. Those are the three. That's what we do. I take the role and responsibility, the opportunity to work with these 2 chiefs as a great honor, and to serve this community as I have in 27 years. I don't have a better job. I used to be 100% blue. Now I'm about 51% blue and about 49% red. But these are the guys and gals that we have working for us and serving our communities. We're lucky to have them. We have an accredited police department, and we have a fire department moving towards accreditation. When you look at some of the factors and the indicators, our police department answers the second most calls for service of all peer groups. We're the second lowest cost per officer, third lowest starting pay rate, second lowest command staff pay rate. Then we have the fewest lieutenants and second lowest number of sergeants. And we have the lowest ratio of command level officers per police officers at 1 per 16 officers, and the average is 1 for 8. I think that is important for folks to know. When you talk about our fire department and our indicators, our full-time firefighters, paramedic, starting salaries ranked 6th in the comparison. Our fire captain's top salary ranked 4th of all the agencies. We're one of only 2 agencies that have an ISO rating of 2. Our full-time firefighter paramedic top salary ranked 2nd in comparison. Our fire captain's top salary ranked 4th of all the agencies. We work very hard to provide the services that we believe are important to our community. Some of the actions specifically to my role in 2014, we promoted a new police chief. Yes, sir.
Sorry to interrupt, but I think it's important to make the point about the ISO rating. That has a direct implication in everybody's property tax bills. The higher your fire department is typically rated on the ISO side, the lower your premiums would be. Am I not
You are correct. And again, ISO, I would defer to the chief. We just completed our ISO review for the last year, late 2015, and we received a report on where we stand for this?
Yes, sir. We were reevaluated in 2014, November of 2015. We were just reevaluated. We have not received our final score back. In previous evaluations, especially the one prior to this last one, we were pushing the envelope, approaching a number 1 rating. So
Should have interrupted, but I thought that's.
No, that's okay, because it led to the update. We're striving for 1, of course.
yeah.
And that's a very, very small number of agencies all across the United States. So, but we're always striving for that, what we call excellence. But we promoted a new police chief. We worked hard to pass a police levy in 2014 against some pretty stiff opposition. There were people out there that didn't want us to continue. The police department received its 4th National Accreditation Award, exactly with the designation of accreditation with excellence. That's a very small percentage of law enforcement. I had personal meetings with 80% of our full-time staff to discuss the ongoing and the future of the fire department and the things that we need to do to get better. We asked them questions like, what do we do good? What are the top 3 things that we do well? What 3 things do we need to improve upon? If you were me, what would you do? And with the magic wand, if there was one thing that you could do no matter what it was, what would that be? And I will tell you, and I've said it in here before, the one thing that many people said was, this guy needs to be the next chief. Because that's the level of respect and that's the quality of the personnel that we have in this organization. But I also learned that there's a lot of people in this organization could take the role, could, with the right opportunity, with the right structure, move on. We changed the structure in our fire department. We moved from division chiefs and battalion chiefs to battalion chiefs, and we eliminated division chief positions. We restructured the organization. We eliminated part-time officer positions, because if you think back 20 years, this was mainly a part-time organization. We had part-time officers to report for part-time firefighters. Well, we've evolved. We don't need part-time captains anymore. That simple adjustment saved us about $68,000 for those folks that were serving in an officer role. They're now serving in firefighter roles. That $68,000 is real dollars when it comes to the bottom line. We talk about reviewing why do we drive a medic engine on a fire call, on an EMS run? That's a hot topic. We studied that. I presented that report to the board. That report is out on the website. So if people query, why do we do that? It's going to come back to Colerain Township, Colerain.org, and they can pull it up and read the factors that go along with turnaround times and getting the right amount of personnel to the emergency, or the medical emergency that we need to be able to provide service. We want to have the people there to be able to take care of the certain need that you have. Now, there are certain runs like sprained ankles and runny noses that we don't send a medic engine on. But there are a lot of runs, we talk about heart and chest pain and things of that nature. You need the manpower to do the job. So those things. We looked at station activity levels. We looked at volume of runs. We looked at redistricting. We looked at response times. We looked at proactivity and how can we better serve our community, led to the evolution and the creation of our quick response team, which is built on critical incident response, proactive EMS response, which then led to our ability to deal with the heroin issue. We facilitated a memorandum of understanding with our union that eliminated pay steps, meaning you got a raise every year no matter whether you, I don't want to say deserved it or not, but the reality is you got a raise just because you were here. Well, we changed that in the police department before that. The fire department accepted that, and we've moved on from there. We've got a very good open line of communication within our fire department and our police departments that we worked really hard on. Because again, at the board directive, we need to open up the lines of communication. We need to be there and discuss the issues before they become an issue. We review the operational fleet. We had engines, and we have engines and ladders that are 20, 25 years old. They generally go about 15 years. We need to work on a plan and develop a model to bring to the board to demonstrate the need and how we're going to financially handle that. We did that. We've replaced one. We have the second one moving forward because our community demands that. We looked at I did a 5-year look back on all appropriations and expenditures. Specifically, what did that come out to? Pretty significant numbers. Excuse me while I turn to the right page. Our operational expenditures, 2008 to 2013, $10,881,606. operational expenses average. 2014 and 15, excuse me, our operational expenses decreased by almost $800,000 a year. Our salary savings, 8 to 13, 6,808,000 average per year, full and part-time. 2014 to 15, 6.1 million. That's an average savings of $649,000. We were at one time 210 employees in the fire department. We're now at 156. The purpose of Chief Cook, and we're driving down to identify that right number. What is that right number? The best serve our community, the best manage, most efficiently, training, personnel, keeping the best people, keeping keeping employees in the seats, and they use a different word in the fire service, but you can figure out what that is. But our goal is to put the amount of people out there to be able to best serve this community the best way we can. Chief Denny is going to explain to you everything that's this police department's about, and Frank Cook, the fire chief, is going to do the same. I think when you walk out of here tonight, you're going to think, I'm proud to live in this community because these guys are working hard because we hold them accountable. We hold our finances accountable. We just had yesterday, our weekly staff meeting was almost 90% on financials. Where are we at through this year? We discuss this on a regular basis. We meet on a weekly basis. We put that together, and we look at our financials because we understand that is the blood that makes us work. So, again, if I would, just Chief Denny, turn it over to Chief Denny, and thank you again for giving us the opportunity to come out tonight, and we appreciate the chance to talk about what we do.
Thanks, Dan. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you, Director. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to pass on some information and to, quite frankly, brag about the police department. When you do these studies, and we've done them a few times, and you start to see the things on paper that you do, knowing what your resources are, there's a level of pride that comes out that you're doing the right thing. And the peer communities that were selected for this study were selected because of their similarities to Colerain Township in many, many different factors. Where we will diverge and go different directions is when I tell you about the services we provide and the accreditation piece that we are very, very proud of. Some highlights by size. We are the largest community of the benchmarked communities size-wise. We also offer a lot of diversity. We have a rural area, a suburban area, and we have an urban area. That causes our officers to be a little more well-rounded. They know they need to be able to respond to all three of those kind of environments, offer solutions, and be able to solve problems in those different environments. We have the second fewest number of police officers, sergeants, and lieutenants, and we have no assistant captains or assistant chiefs or captains. And we handle the second highest call volume while maintaining the third lowest rate of violent crime and property crime. Our police officers responded to about 48,000 calls for service in 2014 and took about 6,500 incident reports. We offer more community-based or community policing programs than any other of our communities because we do problem solving. We look to our community to help us find new and innovative ways to reduce crime and reduce the burden on the police officers. And again, we're one of only 2 internationally accredited agencies in this study, the other being Springfield Township. We're very proud of our accreditation. We talk about it a lot. In fact, I'll do it one more time. This gives you an idea of how many agencies put themselves through this practice that we do. Out of almost 18,000 police departments in the United States, less than 1% have reached the level of accreditation that we have. In the state of Ohio, that number is 1.61. We're one of only 5 in the entire county. You ask, why is that important? Well, because I can stand up here in front of you and I can stand in front of the community and say that the policies we make, the practices we do are best in class. We are doing things that policing leaders say is the best way to do it. And it's not just me saying it. It's someone from the outside coming in, looking at our structure, looking at our practices and saying, no, you know what? You're the best of the best. And they come out every 3 years and they tear us apart. So it's more than just a proud opinion of mine and Director Malloy. We get the opinion of someone that has seen other agencies and how they work. On the cost per officers, the starting salary and the cost per officer were used with the $47,520, which is a new rate for police officers coming in. What's not up there is that our officers also took their insurance to 20%. Most, if not all, of these departments don't pay that amount for their insurance. The topped-out salary, I used the higher salary of the older officers at the $65,590. That puts them right about in the middle of the match there. And then our sergeants, you see where they land. This is the most important slide. This is how much the chief makes. You see where we land in that area. We have no assistant chief. We have no captain. Some of these communities have a chief, 2 assistant chiefs, captains and lieutenants doing the same job. We have a chief and 2 lieutenants because we choose to put our resources out in the street where they can do some good. We are very lean in the command staff area. Department size, our 2014 numbers were 49. The average of all the communities was 74. The lowest 35 with Green Township, and the highest was 128 with Springfield Township. In our calls for service, again, we spoke about that before. We had 48,000. We're just below Hamilton on that. Officers per 1,000 residents. The International Association of Chiefs of Police uses a standard of 1.8 per 1,000 for communities our size. So you kind of see where we fall into that mix there. And I'll tell you, using that 1.8 per 1,000 means I need 105 officers. I don't need 105 officers. I can't stand here and tell you with a straight face that I need 105 officers. But this just gives you an apples-to-apples comparison of where we stand using that figure. The benchmarked average was 1.32 per 1,000. Bringing it more locally, these are county agencies that answered more than 10,000 calls per service in 2014. Obviously, we're up there on the top. But on the far right, you look at the calls per full-time officer. That's the burden on the officers on the street. Now, in reality, the 49 officers, you need to take away command staff, and you need to take away the investigators. So that number jumps to about 1,200. So we're far exceeding anybody else on that list as far as the demand we place on our officers and how much work they're doing on the street. The population figures are based on 2010 census figures. Everything else I'm seeing shows we are gaining a population, but we're right in the middle of all the other benchmark communities. While we cover the largest area by 15 square miles, we cover the largest area. And our supervisor to officer ratio is about 1 to 7. That's about as far off as you want to get as far as your span of control, because you start to lose the ability to evaluate, supervise, and help your officers as they need to be helped if you're spread too thin. So we're right about where we need to be in that method. Crime comparisons. Before we start on crime, I think it's important to note there's a lot of things that go into crime rates. Your school system, your unemployment rate, your poverty rate, your parental involvement in the community, things that are outside of the police department's control. So in reality, when you look at your crime stats, you're kind of looking at a reflection of your community as a whole and things that they're doing to fight the crime. And you see on both categories, we're in the bottom 3 of both property and violent crime. This is our numbers ranked against U.S. and state numbers. What's important about this slide is the definitions of what these crimes are. They're very misleading sometimes, and it causes some fear and perception problems when we put them out the way they are without explaining them. The murder can range everywhere from a purposeful killing of another person to an accidental shooting. That all encompasses the same crime. Rape goes everywhere from the traditional man with the mask that we think about to family-involved sexual assaults. Robbery goes from putting a gun in somebody's face and taking their money to a 15-year-old who stole a pack of gum pushing the clerk out of his way. Those get categorized as the same crime. Aggravated assaults, now those are assaults that are a little more serious than a bar fight or punching and shoving. This usually requires some medical intervention or some time in the hospital. And the burglaries are obviously entering someone's house or business with the intent of stealing property. Motor vehicle theft is pretty self-explanatory. But then you see theft. Theft, we're way up. We're above the state and the national levels. And we'll talk about that in a few minutes and what we're doing to combat that. But violent crime, we're far below state and national numbers. In property crime driven by theft, it pushes us up again a little higher. When we look at theft, a very important thing to note is about 68 to 75% of our thefts, depending on what month it is, are shoplifters. So while you look at theft, you think of people breaking into cars and taking things from people's homes. 75% of this is retail theft and the shoplifters. Not to minimize the damage that does, but I think it needs to be pointed out to our community. Violent crime, we fare pretty well with our other local area departments. You're going to see Springfield, Middletown, and Hamilton are going to far outpace us in most crimes. And that's going to be a trend you see with most of these slides. And we stay very competitive with our local Green Township, Springfield Township, and Westchester. Total property crime, same story. We're creeping up a little bit there. Again, we exceed the state of Ohio and the United States, the numbers, driven by theft. Murder rates, this is a different trend. These numbers don't trend like a theft or a robbery or a criminal damaging. These are snapshots in time. Some of these communities went 7 years without any homicides at all and happened to have 3 in the year that we did the study. So it's really not a trending crime. It's more just when you happen to look, that's what the numbers were. Rapes per 100,000. We have very, very, very few stranger rapes, and that absolutely doesn't have any impact on the victim and how that impacts them. But it's something our community needs to know, that we're not having violent stranger rapes occurring outside in the community. We have very few of those, and we're still well within our peer groups. Robberies. You see a couple places that have been far to the right all of a sudden drop back a little bit. Now, I've been around long enough to know that this is how you can play with your stats a little bit. Robbery is assault and theft put together. So if I, as a chief, don't want my robbery numbers to look terrible, because that's a more serious crime, I can categorize those as an assault and a theft. That happens quite a lot. Obviously, we don't do that. We report it as it is, but that's a little game that gets played with that stat sometimes, so you need to know that as you're looking at them. And that is a retail-based crime for us as well. A lot of our shoplifters, about half of them, are robberies, or shoplifters that have assaulted either police or security staff as they've tried to run. Aggravated assaults, these are generally domestic violence related and drug related. And that kind of lends to jumping ahead with our QRT team and our FJC. That's why we jumped in with this. If we can get ahead of these trends and we can jump in, grab that heroin addict, get him out of there before he starts committing crime or he gets shot, and same with the domestic violence victim, we can get them out of that cycle of violence and get them in a safer place, we prevent these crimes from occurring. Our burglaries, we really watch this because this is a bellwether for heroin use. Generally speaking, the heroin addicts will start with shoplifting. When that's not enough to support their habit, they move on to the next phase, which is generally burglary. So we watch it very closely to make sure we're not outpacing our neighbors, and we look for any spikes in that to really jump on it as quickly as we can. Motor vehicle theft. Interestingly, most of these are preventable. People leave their cars running in front of their house. They leave them running at gas stations. Motor theft also encompasses if I lend you my vehicle and you don't return it on time. Technically speaking, by the way we report crime, that is a motor vehicle theft. So a lot of these things are very controlled by the victim themselves. And there are thefts that we spoke about. That's our driving force with crime. That is our number one crime that we were dealing with, and we're constantly looking for new ways to reach out to the loss prevention people, the corporate people. What can we do to help you change the layout of your store, things of that nature to try to impact their crime rate. But interestingly, if you look back 37 years, or 36 years, in 1980 we had basically the same crime rate we have now as far as theft. And we have a lot more business in Colerain than we did then. We didn't have the Walmarts, we didn't have Stone Creek Town Center, things of that nature. So you see a lot of peaks and valleys there, but the big drop you see here in 2003 is when we began our NRO program and our problem-solving approach. So instead of putting Band-Aids on things, we said, why don't we get to the source of the problem, see if we can alleviate that, and I think you see a corresponding drop there. Rises again, that's about the same time that Walmart and Stone Creek kicked back into Colerain, bringing more retail with Meijer and JCPenney and things of that nature that drove the crime, the theft rate back up. The next one is kind of the decline of Northgate Mall, but you're seeing that recovery again as we have the resurgence of the Gateway in the mall area. We're bringing more people back into the township. As you bring shoppers, you also bring along shoplifters with that. So that is it's not a surprise that those numbers are going up, but we're still working on those as well. But where we separate from everybody else is in the services we provide our community. When you have reduced resources, you need to think efficiently and you need to think differently so that you can provide services to the community that they deserve. Programs like our QRT team and our Family Justice Center greatly impact crime. We just got a stat today that 79% of the people that our QRT team makes contact with after an overdose go to treatment. Now, if you think 79% of those people going into treatment doesn't reduce our crime rate, it absolutely does. All the burglaries they would have committed, all the thefts they would have committed, the fact that we'd have gone to another overdose run, it's a huge impact on what we do. So taking those little extra steps to do things that most police departments don't do, it makes sense. Our school resource officers and our mall officers, before they were in their places, we were called to those places all the time. That was our number one call, go to the mall, go to the schools, constantly. Now having those people in those places, not only do we have a deterrent effect, but we have a quicker response, a better response, And we're saving money on our dispatch fees as well. They're not having to dispatch us to all these things. And at $15 a dispatch now, I'll take the savings. Our federal partnerships, we took a lot of heat for this in 2014 when we were talking about the levy. Why are we sending officers off to these task forces if we need people? Force multiplying. What we get from these, force multiplying. The partnerships we have with these three entities is immense. We had a bank robbery suspect that required 24-hour surveillance for a number of days. For me to take 3 or 4 guys off the street, put them under 24-hour surveillance on somebody, it would decimate our ability to do our job. A partnership and a friendship and a phone call, it was done for us. We had a suspect in Florida that was wanted. I probably could have found somebody to go down there and get them easily, but they knocked on the door, grabbed him up, extradited him back to us. The cost that would have been incurred by us sending somebody down there would have been immense. And I sat in the office today with the DEA, the new special agent in charge, and he told me, anything you need, any drug investigation you need, you have the full resources of the DEA. That doesn't happen for every department. It happens because you have a relationship built with these people in advance. Our K-9 program, that really got into swing late last year and into this year. I met with a district official this morning who told me that their first quarter drug arrests for last year were 22. For this year, they're down to 5. And she credits that the fact that Kudo's in the school. He makes visits almost every day. The kids know he's going to be in the school doing searches. And that deterrent effect. And we kind of knew that was going to come. But that keeps our officers, again, from having to respond, having to make arrests, having to go down to court, all the things that go along with making an arrest. So to kind of sum everything up, we're doing things that most big departments don't even think about doing. And I think what's impressive about it is we're doing it while we stay within our budget, and we do it while we respect the community's tax dollar. Any questions?
I would offer one other point. It's a point that you made a couple weeks ago at a mutual meeting that we were at. We have a culture where, we're not afraid to fail. We welcome thought leadership. We welcome innovation. And, if there's something that doesn't turn out, then we'll can it and move on.
Absolutely.
But we're not afraid to ask the question, and we're not afraid to try. And I think that's very important for an innovative problem-solving.
And it is, and having that culture allows our officers below us to feel secure, to bring ideas to our attention. And most of these ideas come from them. They don't come from us.
Yeah.
We just make them look good. They're actually the ones that do the work and come up with the hard things.
My colleagues have any questions?
So far, so good. Just one on the crimes, on the statistics, the specific crime that's reported is the number that's represented up there, correct? It's not the conviction or the result of the case.
Those are just reported crimes. And what we run into sometimes, and it frustrates people when they look at our crime stats, crimes that are reported could go back and get changed. If we get a reported rape this month, it could be a year from now that we go back and find out that rape never occurred. So you have to go back into the stats and change that, and people wonder why the stats change. They're fluid. They're not in concrete. So that's just reported to us. And then when we do the investigation, we get a better idea of whether or not that's an actual occurrence.
That's good you're doing your due diligence, but when you're comparing these statistics, how do you know the other departments are doing that as well?
I don't. And we can go with what they give us. And like I said, there's numbers to be played, or games to be played with some of these numbers. We will do our job, and we'll do it the right way, and we're still showing good. So even if they're doctoring their numbers, they're not doing a good enough job because we're better than they are.
And when is your next benchmarking?
We do it every 2 years.
It's every 2?
Yeah.
Mark, what was your biggest learning from this and your biggest opportunity for improvement?
Again, with the programs and looking for new ways to do things without spending money. That's a common thing with government and police departments a lot is any program we want to do, we need more money from you. And it's not necessary. We have friends, we have abilities to reach out. I'll tell you something in my staff notes here.
Partnerships to a greater extent is what you're trying
I've got
to say.
a perfect example when we do our staff notes here. You have to put your ego away, look around you, and say, what can we do as a team together? And I think there's a lot of opportunities for that.
To try to predict the curve, could we benchmark once a year instead of once every 2 years?
Well, we do a formal benchmarking presentation every 2 years. This is done monthly. I keep this up monthly. We sit down once a month with my sergeants for a ComStat meeting where we look at every crime, what happened the month before, and what we're going to do to reduce it the next month. So we don't allow these things to go on for periods of time and then address them.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Great job.
Good evening, Board. I also thank you for the opportunity to report on the benchmarking efforts of the Department of Fire and Emergency Medical Services. As Director Malloy stated, we are, and I, a little biased, but feel that, we are one of the best agencies in the area, if not the region. For many years, we've been looked at, we led in this industry, and I want to continue that characteristic where we are identified as a leader in the fire and emergency medical services industry. As Director Malloy stated, our medical directors, a lot of them look to us, and a lot of academic institutions that train paramedics and medical students and their students to us to put their time in and actually learn based on experiences and the what we see and observe in the field. So, just to give you an overview of the type of data that we collected and the reporting criteria, as indicated before, the time period in which we sought data was January 1 through December 31st of 2014. We looked at the service area profile and the characteristics, agency staffing, the Insurance Services Office, Public Protection Classification Rating, historical emergency incident activity, and the agency salary and wage data. The slide up here shows, obviously, as has been stated before, is we do serve the largest land area. We state that we're one of the largest townships in the state of Ohio. What this slide shows is that as compared to our peers, we serve and protect more land area while our population is less than the cities and one of the other townships. We actually serve the largest land area. As Chief Denny stated, the land area that we protect is characterized as suburban, rural, and urban. Each one of these types or characteristics present different challenges to us as a fire department. When you look at it from an urban perspective, buildings are closer together. Buildings may not be maintained the same as one would do in the more suburban or rural areas. So they present different challenges to us. When we get out into the rural areas, the challenges are we may not have any water supply out there, no hydrants, so we have to truck the water in. So again, that presents different challenges to us. Residents elect to live back private driveways, which we have to deploy large amounts of hose. Some of our larger, longer driveways, we're probably looking at maybe 5 or even half a dozen fire engines just to get a water supply back to some of these houses. And again, once you get out into the suburban and the rural areas, homes are much larger. New homes are constructed differently versus some of the older ones. So like I said, characteristically, these community characteristics really present challenges to us in providing fire protection. The next slide here gives us a closer look at the land area protected, the population, and the resources that the fire department provides. We are below the average and the median when it comes to jurisdictional population. And that the result is because we are so spread out and we do serve a large landmass. We provide our protection with 5 stations, which is right there at the median in comparison to our peers. But the one thing that does stand out is the coverage area provided in square miles per fire station. We are the largest there. We cover more square miles with each firehouse as compared to our peers. And then the fire station area population density. Again, we're low at that point, but the reason that is, again, because we're spread out. You get out into the Peach Grove area, the Dunlap area. Those guys have a lot of rural area to cover out there, and the population is not as dense. Staffed emergency response vehicles as compared to our peers. We're right there with the mean and the median, or the average and the median.
The city of Springfield jumps out there at 9 engine companies, where we're staffed with 5. You know, you look at some of these city municipalities, and historically cities have assigned their stations or placed their stations based on horse and steam pumpers. They had to have a lot more stations because it was obviously slower for a horse and steam pumper to travel. But you know, nowadays, you know, we have GIS and technology that assist us in determining station locations. But typically, your cities, you know, they'll have a lot more fire stations as compared to some of the suburban departments. Ladder companies, you see only 2 of the departments there reported that they have ladder companies, we being one of them, Westchester and the city of Hamilton. Now, one thing to understand is while each one of these departments does have a ladder company, they classify it a little differently, and that's called a quint. A quint is a piece of fire apparatus that has a aerial ladder on it, along with a fire pump, along with fire hose, and a water tank. Whereas our department of those, we're the only department that runs a ladder truck without a pump, water, and fire hose on it. And the reason that is because we put a emphasis on the tasks that are associated with that company. The ladder company has specific tasks that they're responsible for once they arrive on a fire scene, and it can be very difficult to perform simultaneous tasks. You know, you pull up in front of a building with an aerial ladder on it, the pump and water. Okay, which task am I going to perform? Am I going to do engine company work? Am I going to pull a hose? Am I going to apply water to the fire? Am I going to put the aerial ladder up and go, you know, ventilation? So it's been our concept for the past 25 years, or better, to staff a piece of apparatus without a pump. You know, we've got enough pumps here in the township, and 5 of them, that we feel that we can efficiently moor and tackle fire in that means. Because, like I said, our guys, when they pull up on that piece of apparatus, they know what their primary objectives is. That's, you know, rescue, you know, ventilation, and provide laddering and things like that to the fire building. As Director Malloy stated, looking at our fleet, you know, we've got some apparatus that are in excess of 20 years. Last year in October, we put into service a brand new 2015 Rosenbauer pumper. That pumper replaced a truck that was a 1990 pumper. We've since ordered a second pumper to replace a 1994 pumper. You know, as a result of the runs and the work that our apparatus have endured over the past several years, you know, they were starting to show their signs of age, and then technology and availability of repair parts and things like that have also strained our fleet maintenance mechanic. So that number will slowly be changing with the purchase of, or with the accepted delivery of the next one, which will be approximately September of this year. You know, that number should go down. Also, we're in the process right now of speccing out and designing a new aerial ladder, which is also approximately 24 years old. My approach to this is to involve the end users being the firefighters. They're the ones that have to use this thing day in and day out. So instead of me as the chief of the department saying, you know, here's a piece of apparatus that I think best fits the township, you know, I'm involving the end users of the piece of apparatus. We've begun our design process by looking back to what has worked and what hasn't worked for us over the past 25 years. What equipment's needed, what equipment's not needed. You know, things have changed as far as standards and things like that in the fire service, and this is a time for us to take an opportunity and try to get the biggest bang for our buck and get what's the most technologically advanced piece to best serve the township. Looking at our transport ambulances, obviously the city of Springfield is much higher than what we are, but you know, we're in the process right now. We're on the tail end of remounting and refurbishing our ambulance fleet.
We did a replacement back in 2006, and we're currently in the process of right now of remounting and refurbishing. And when I talk about remounting and refurbishing, what we do is we purchase a new chassis, take the existing box, we send it back to the manufacturer, they refurb it, update it where needed to make all the necessary repairs, and then re-chassis it onto the new chassis, which is a significant amount of cost savings. You know, a new ambulance, you know, you can be in the neighborhood of $180,000, and here we are, we're re-chassising in the neighborhood of $84,000. So there's some significant cost savings there in the re-chassising of these ambulances. Our support vehicles, and when I talk about support vehicles, we talk about the command vehicles, the staff vehicles, the vehicles that are assigned to the stations, the pickup trucks and things like that. As you can see, you know, our staff of support vehicles are up there in age. Just recently, last year, we've removed, I think, 5 of them from the fleet. They were becoming expensive to repair, and they were just not mechanically sound. So, you know, we've removed them from the fleet, and as we progress forward, some of the vehicles that still have some good service left in them, we'll downgrade those. Yes, sir.
Frank, speaking of maintenance, how would you say the model's worked out since we moved it up here to the hill on the campus here? How has that worked out, generally speaking?
I think it's worked out very well. Number one, you know, we're in a more centralized location. There is a much larger work area for our mechanic to work in. You know, increased lighting, just, you know, the room alone and just being centralized has benefited us greatly. You know, as we expand our services, having that additional room to be able to work on a wider variety of vehicles is going to really benefit us. We've talked about the ISO status. The ISO is the Insurance Services Office. It's a company that comes in and evaluates the fire department. Fire departments are looked at from several different aspects as far as evaluation, or, you know, is one fire department better than the other? One thing that's looked at, and we looked at in the last benchmarking report, was accreditation. You know, similar to what the police department goes through, fire departments are also accredited. We're in the process of going through or preparing to go through the accreditation process. It's one of my goals as chief before I leave this place is to be accredited. You know, it's a pretty prestigious designation. It's a very rigorous journey, if you will, but it's certainly a goal that I have before I part ways in this position. Not all fire departments go through the accreditation process, but one thing that all fire departments are, they're evaluated by the Insurance Services Office. As you can see here, we have a 2 rating. We talked about it before. The ratings are on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the best, 10 being the worst. You know, we've had a 2 rating for a number of years. We were just reevaluated in November of last year. And it's our hopes that maybe we can break that barrier and achieve that 1. I know we're close, but, you know, we haven't heard anything back from our evaluator yet. The only thing I've heard back from ISO is they provided us with a survey. I was kind of reluctant to fill that survey out until I got our rating back. So what they look at when they evaluate us is they look at the fire department as a whole. They look at our apparatus, how our apparatus is equipped, how we're staffed, our training and education bureau, things of these sort. They take a look at that. They also look at the emergency communications. How are calls received? Where they're received? How are we dispatched? What means are we notified? So they take a look at the emergency communications as a whole. And then they also look at the water supply. They look at the gallons per minute. Like I mentioned before, you know, we have areas of the township that have no fire hydrants, but we are able to sustain a effective water supply just using our water tanker system in order to keep up with the flow. You know, we utilize mutual aid departments to help us augment our water supplies, but we feel pretty good about our means of providing water supplies to these unprotected areas. And obviously, you know, we've been able to do so, and ISO looks at us and, you know, grants us with a number 2 rating. And looking at our staffing, as Director Malloy stated before, you know, we used a combination system of staffing. We were the first department in the region to staff our fire stations. We've evolved from a combination volunteer fire department, career fire department, to a part-time staff fire department, career department, which we're currently using. And we're in about our 32nd year of providing the combination system of staffing. As you can see there, 3 of the departments that we're compared against use the combination system, and the 3 city departments use an all-career system of staffing. Economically, we felt that the combination is the most efficient way to cost-efficient way to provide staffing. As you can see there, we're below the average and the median as far as the number of career employees. We utilize the most out of the other 3 township departments as far as part-time employees, and then we staff 4 civilians. Again, this is back in 2014, and today those numbers have significantly changed.
Chief, let me be devil's advocate for a second here and talk about my brethren over in Green Township. Similar population, slightly lower acreage. How are they getting away with 43 and 49 with that complement of so much lower part-time and even 14 lower career people? What's different? They substantially lower runs.
Well, they have obviously one less fire station than we do. They don't staff the same way that we do. And actually,
Our way better.
Please.
What makes our way better?
Well, number one, when we staff our apparatus and our stations, obviously in the firefighting occupation, safety comes in numbers, and I believe safety and efficiency comes in numbers. When you have to fight a fire, you do a critical task analysis, to accomplish certain amount of jobs on the fire ground, it takes numbers. There's departments out there that run with 2 people on a piece of apparatus, or 3 people on apparatus, and it just makes the job that much more difficult.
Big variables, number of houses, right? That's
yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thanks.
Well, just out of curiosity, what is Green Township's ISO rating?
They are a 3.
Okay.
Yep. They said the ISO evaluator is going through Hamilton County right now and evaluating all the fire departments. So I expect this year to see some changes in those ratings. This slide is a comparison of the number of part-time people versus career personnel. As you can see, as I stated before, we have the highest amount of part-time people, even though there's been changes that have occurred over the past year or so. We still remain the highest part-time people, and our full-time numbers are creeping up there as well. Quite frankly, the part-time system is stressed right now. There is not a large number of people out there looking for jobs from a part-time perspective. We attract a lot of part-time people because of the activity that we have here in the township as far as responses. The training that we provide is, there's nobody out there that provides the level of training. We have the facilities here in order to provide training effectively, and so we attract a lot of people, but the resources are just drying up. People are looking for career opportunities, and so we're challenged in trying to maintain the part-time force. So the only department that exceeds us is the highest there is obviously the city of Springfield. The next slide here provides a comparison of fire command staff. As you can see, as far as the chief officers there, we're right there in the mix as far as the average and the median of the peer departments. Where we exceed is the number of fire captains, and we're slowly transitioning that. As far as rank structure and fire officer's position, it really has to do with chain of command and unity of command. We want to make sure that we have a good span of control, that we have one supervisor that has a sufficient number of subordinates that report to them. And as time goes on and through attrition, you'll slowly see that captain number come down and to see the lieutenant's number increase. Obviously, there's some There's some organizational benefits to that, and then also there's some cost savings associated with that. So over time, you will see that number change.
Hey, Chief, isn't our ultimate goal that we'll have 8 captains?
Yes, sir, that's correct. We'll have 8 captains, and those will be 5 station captains. That'll be 1 captain assigned to each one of our fire stations, and 2 lieutenants at that station will report them. And then we'll have 3 divisional captains, which are the captains of the emergency medical services, training, and community risk reduction. And looking at our annual request for service, we're right there in the middle with 9,279. Looking at the departments that are ahead of us, I'm a little suspect of how they report it. One thing that I learned from the last benchmarking exercise was that, how do you report your incident numbers? We all 7 departments listed there run an engine company along with the ambulance units. Okay. An incident report is filed to the state of Ohio, the fire marshal's office, for that fire company response. And there's also a report generated for the ambulance. So what we've reported here is the total runs. We took all the fire responses, subtracted the EMS runs. So what you see there is a sum of the fire incident report run responses and the ambulance. So, I can't say that with confidence for the 3 stations or the 3 departments ahead of us. We're similar in size. We're similar in population, but the amount of runs is 16,000. I just am a little suspect, and it's all dependent upon how you report your activity. Regionally, we are the second busiest department to the city of Cincinnati, here within Hamilton County. And from all, hours of the day, the runs just seem to be constant. That 9279, kind of equates to about 25 runs a day. And some days are busier and some days are slower, on average, but that's what we're doing is about 25 runs a day. Looking at the emergency medical services demand, again, we're right in the middle at 7305. You look at the cities. Cities historically, they tend to have a lot more emergency medical needs, and I can relate that to probably socioeconomics, demographics. There's a lot of factors in there, but typically, your larger cities, they'll have a heavier workload as far as emergency medical services. And again, of the township municipalities there, we're at the top of the pack right there. And looking at things from a fire company perspective, 1,974 runs. Those are actual requests for the fire company. Of that 1974, there were actually 263 fire incidents within the township. Some other types of responses that we make, that number also includes false alarms, good intent runs. Good intent runs could be a citizen's request to help them control a broken water pipe or something like that. We also respond to service calls, special weather-related types of runs, hazardous conditions. But like I said, out of the 1,974, 263 of those were actual fires here that suffered some type of loss here within the township. Looking at our salary comparison there in 2014, our chief made 106,000 plus, which was above the mean and the median. But looking comparatively at our peers, the fire chief's salary ranged anywhere from 94,000 up to 111,925.
Without getting too personal, that was Chief Smith, and that was 2014 data.
Yes.
I'd say you're below that.
Yes. And then Westchester's chief there is on the high end. Again, looking at the deputy chief and assistant chiefs, deputy chiefs, we were on the high end above the mean and the median. When you look at our peers 89.5 to 89.7.
Long tenured individual in that role.
Yes.
It is what it is. I'm not
Yes.
being critical. I'm just saying. Anomaly. He's going to be stepping out soon, and
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. So, dropping out. Sorry, that's the term, right?
Retiring. Yes. And then our assistant chief at $85,000, and again, that's below the mean and the median. And looking at the range there, Westchester's on the high end, and the low end is 83,000. So we're not just a little bit above that. Looking at our firefighters and those guys that are on the line 24 hours a day, the table there provides a comparison. The top line of each one of the categories provides the base salary, whereas the bottom line of each one of the categories provides the top salary. Top salary at the battalion chief, we're right about in there with the mean, but we're above the median. So the ranges there, again, they range anywhere from 73.6 to 85.1, and on the top end, 77.3 to 95.6. And then that fire captain rate, Director Malloy spoke of that on the base salaries there, 73.5 for us, the mean being at 68, median being 67 there. So we're above there on the base for the captains, and then we're on the low side there on the top end, whereas the mean and median, you were anywhere from 82.2 to 83.9. So, and then at the lieutenants, 75.1, our base and top salary for our lieutenants, which was a newly created rank during 2014, I believe. Again, we're above the mean and median on the bottom side, and then we're also above on the top salary as well. And then our firefighter paramedic, we're well below the mean and median, and I think there was only one other department that was below us at 43.3, and the top end at the base salary was 55.8, and then on the top end, we're right amongst the top as far as our firefighter paramedics there amongst our peer agencies. So
I would argue we're doing even a little bit better, because these are just base salary figures, and if they were fully loaded with benefits with our contribution rate of 20%, I would argue like doing a little better in some cases, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Chief, and not to steal your thunder from maybe another slide, but we are looking at 2014 data. I think it's important to recognize that new firefighters coming in, that firefighter paramedic rate of topped out 71,018 under the new model is gone.
Yes.
So we have currently a two-tier system. You come in at 43,908 and you go to 54, I believe it is?
Yes, sir.
Roughly?
Yeah.
So that we're basically currently taking that 71,018 down to 54,000. So we've tried to implement some steps to avoid long-term cost through attrition.
Yes, sir. Thank you. So this is a snapshot of how we compared against our peer agencies. We provide a lot of services day in and day out. Not only are we responsible for providing fire protection, emergency medical services, we also have the responsibility to provide technical rescue. When I talk about technical rescue, when a person's involved in an accident and they're pinned or entrapped in the vehicle, it's our responsibility to remove that wreckage from around them. We also have responsibility for the river and waterway systems through the township. So we provide the water rescue, hazardous materials. We're the first responders when it comes to hazardous materials, whether it's tanker trucks or semi-trucks going through the township across 275, or one of our industries that houses hazardous materials. We're the first responder to respond in attempts to mitigate those incidents. And we provide a lot of other services in the means of community risk reduction through our life safety inspections, our public education, our training and education. We have a host of subject matter experts within our agency that are called upon by other agencies to provide instruction, to provide consultation. So, we're very blessed to have a talented workforce here in the township and providing fire protection and emergency medical services. So at this point, I guess I offer up any questions anyone may have.
Chief, I'll start with the same question I asked Chief Denny. What was your top learning from this exercise and your biggest area of improvement, you would say?
Well, I think our biggest opportunity for improvement is to continue to enhance our community risk reduction activities. And we're doing that. We have a very talented EMS captain and Captain Mueller, and he's heavily involved with the health initiatives that are taking place here in the township. We're right now a part of a pilot program as far as the community paramedicine. So there's several things there that we can continue to expand. I mentioned at a previous meeting where we had a success in the Skyline Acres neighborhood with the smoke detector program, and that's part of our community risk reduction program. If it wasn't for those smoke detectors that we were there to install, we would have more than likely had 2 fatalities that particular morning. It's our plan during 2016 to expand that project. We're going to start looking at the Staley Drive, Compton Hills neighborhoods and try to expand that program. Yeah, manufactured homes, mobile homes, they're more of a higher risk type of structure, and we just feel that it's important that we get into those neighborhoods and make sure that they have sufficient amount of smoke detectors. In 2015, we did have a fatality down at the Compton Hills neighborhood, and so we're targeting both those neighborhoods this year to try to get smoke detectors included.
And my last question is in regards to Station 102 down up on Old Colerain and Dunlap, for those of you who aren't familiar with our numbering system. What's your long-term outlook, would you say, for that station, given its modest number of runs?
Well, while it does have a modest number of runs, it still, in my opinion, plays a significant role in providing emergency services protection here in the township. While part of our study included relocation to maybe assist in alleviating some of the other workloads on some of the other stations, but because that area is, in some areas of it, is so remote, and response times play a critical element to the job that we provide. It's still critical in the overall fire protection and emergency medical services delivery here in the township. And what we really need to look at is, maybe relocating that station further south.
Speaking of response times, I was surprised we didn't see that metric in there anywhere compared to our peer communities. I know we're still in the 5s area and have maintained that as well. It hasn't degraded, as some have suggested.
Well, that was in our last time we reported out on that was a very difficult metric to measure because, again, not all fire departments look at things the same. I'm a very data-driven person. I keep very tight reins on I constantly look at our response times. Are we meeting national standards? Are we meeting the standards and the objectives that we've established here in the township? And, they vary from department to department. It's a very difficult metric to measure against.
We continue to measure it in a monthly dashboard that goes to the board, and so I feel comfortable that it's something we watch on a continual basis to take mitigating action if it ever starts degrading in a material way. So.
And to go a step further, Trustee Ritter, that dashboard is available on the website for public review as well.
Okay. Dan?
And that was it's one of those things I learned. Travel time versus response time is 2 different things. So how is that evaluated? But one of the things in the western part of the township is a 10-minute response time for certain parts of East Miami, Day Road, Dry Ridge Road, things of that nature. That was another part of the proactive partnership between the police and the fire to establish the quick response team, a paramedic and a police officer, training police officers in a first response emergency medical team perspective to be out there, be proactive. When these things occur, we have someone out there that can maybe speed up that response because we're out there working already. So that's kind of the long-term game. You can't build a station at dead end of Blue Rock and East Miami where you just can't do that tomorrow. So how else can we respond to that? So that's the daily stuff that we talk about when we look at, okay, how can we better serve within the confines? As Chief Denny said, this is our money. These are our issues. What are we going to do to best serve this community?
Yeah, is there any way to get data for mutual aid call times near that station?
Yeah, again, we have to obtain that information from, say, Ross Township, and whether they keep that type of data or, produce that data, I'd have to, inquire. Obviously, there's a fire station located right across the bridge, but you have to understand they only staff that station with 2 people. And so, while they could provide some assistance, it's not going to be the quality service, that we as township residents and businesses expect from our fire department.
Chief, do we still track mutual aid on the dashboard in and out?
We do still track mutual aid, and actually over the past year or two, it's balanced out. We've employed some efforts and to try to balance that out so it's more equitable. Just this past week, the Hamilton County Dispatch Center has employed a new computer-aided dispatch system. That system allows the closest fire station to be dispatched to any incident. So, but there's some parameters set up within that system to, whereas we try to utilize our resources first, but in the event of a significant incident, it does have that ability to call upon the closest department. Now, when before we were making runs out to Harrison and things like that, obviously it's going to call for Whitewater or maybe Crosby Township before it calls for. So we should see some reduction in the amount of mutual aid runs.
Stranger Hughes, do you have any questions?
Nope, no questions. Thank you, Chief.
I visited one of the stations, I think it was last week, and the guys were asking, they love the new ringtone systems that are being installed. Are they all installed yet?
I have 3 of the 5 stations completed, and it's in our plan this year to finish those other 2 stations. Yes.
Real quick, for the people that don't understand the new ringtone systems, can you give them a brief breakdown exactly of why we did it and what it is?
Yeah. When a run comes in for Colerain Township, the runs in Groesbeck, the station in Pleasant Run is also notified, and that's morning, middle of the night. Studies have indicated that firefighters have suffered health problems because of lack of sleep. There used to be Claxton bells in the bedrooms and the sleeping quarters, and that sudden shock to your system from a dead sleep has proved detrimental. Whether it's related to sleep apnea or some type of cardiac issue, there has been significant amount of studies shown. So, in an effort to reduce the amount of stress and negative health effects, we've employed a system to where if it's a run for Station 26 in Groesbeck, then that station's only notified. Now, if it's a structure fire that requires multiple units, then all the stations are alerted. So that's it in a nutshell.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay.
Well, to wrap things up for the benchmarking, I just want to say this was something that the board charged Mr. Rowan with in 2012 when he started. I think it's a very healthy process, and it's something that we should embrace. This is purely anecdotal. I have no evidence of this, and I'm just guessing, but I would argue if you look at your major townships in Ohio of scale, say above 20,000 people, we're probably one of the only few that are doing this on a regular basis, and I think that's something to be commended. And and you also have to ask yourself, well, gee, what's the next step? And, what about accountability for, addressing the findings? You have to look no further than our strat plans that we put together for each department. And I just sat through a session a couple weeks ago where we actually sat around a table and went through each of the initiatives that were teed up last year and the follow-up and accountability for, who was assigned to it, did it complete or not, how far along are we? And so, I feel pretty good about where we are. So thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Trustee Ritter, members of the board, I'd like to also thank Director Malloy, Chief Cook, and Chief Denny. You know, as much as we might like to benchmark and present this information annually to the public, to try to extract this data out of our peer groups is very difficult. It's not as simple as just doing a public records request. It's a conversation. And I would venture to guess you guys have probably been working on this for at least 6 to 9 months, pulling data, putting data together. This presentation was originally slated for the fall. We've kind of pushed it back a little bit. But I commend you for all your work. A couple things that I've picked up on different than before is I'm starting to see this one culture concept. A lot more police and fire integration, which is something we've been building on for 4 years now. As we continue to compete with our 2022 plan to stretch dollars as far as we can, we know that in both departments, with driving down our salary schedules, recruitment and retention is becoming challenging. So we've got to manage our way through that process. And also, as we look at the balance between full-time and part-time firefighters and the shortage thereof, and what just happened with our 2B program and having to look at that, we've got some challenging times ahead to figure out how we're going to serve this community and give them the level of service that they have expected and will probably continue to expect. There are other ways to deliver service. It's just a matter of what the value that the community places on each of you, and I commend you for all the work. Thank you.
Thank you again. Neighborhood canvassing, Chief, you're next. Jennifer. Lieutenant Sharp. I stand correct.
Thank you all for letting me speak this evening. For over a decade now, part of our community policing efforts in the police department is to go out and actually canvass neighborhoods. So every quarter, for the past year and a half now, we've been trying to determine a different neighborhood to canvass. And this past couple of weeks, we decided that we were going to canvass the Wood Trail and Chagrin Way and Newberry Acres. And then like the surrounding houses right there on Springdale. So I just wanted to share with you our findings. The average length of residency in the neighborhood was 20 and a half years. It ranged anywhere from 5 years to 38 plus. So it was quite a large span of years that people were actually living there in the neighborhood. We asked people, have you ever been a victim of crime while living on the street? An overwhelming 83% stated no, which was great to hear. 17% said yes. That 17%, it was basically thefts. So there wasn't any major crime. However, this is a crime. 5 years ago, cars being rummaged through, broken into. Somebody had their lawnmower stolen, and a quad was stolen last year. Do you believe there's a drug problem in your neighborhood? We had nobody say yes. We had one person saying probably, and I think that has a lot to do with the fact that there's been so much talk right now over the heroin epidemic that we do have here in the state of Ohio. But 97% all said no, that they don't believe there is a drug problem in their neighborhood, and neither have they seen any drug activity occurring in their neighborhood, which was a great thing. Police presence in the neighborhood. 41% stated that they see us often in the neighborhood. 31% said they don't see us enough, and the other 28% were unsure. A lot of the do not see us enough patrols in our neighborhood. A lot of them also stated that they didn't foresee the need. They believe that they lived in a very safe neighborhood, which I'd have to agree statistically as far as any crimes or anything that have occurred in their neighborhood. But it was good to hear that they feel that they've been seeing us on patrol and that we're out there. That's one of the great joys about going out and actually canvassing, is getting to meet people face to face, getting to see them getting to know us, and getting that opportunity to actually say, hey, we are here for you if you do need us for any reason. The number one problem that most people felt that us as a police department should be dealing with in their neighborhood, majority had nothing to actually report. They believe that they didn't believe there was any problems actually in their neighborhood that existed. We had vandalism, loitering, and then a zoning issue. Some of the comments that we received from the residents, which I was very grateful to actually hear, and it's very rewarding to actually be able to go out there and talk to these people and have them say this to you, is that they're very fortunate to have us as a police department. They feel their neighborhood is safe. They don't see any issues. They see a lot of police presence. I feel really safe here. I like the patrolling, and I think they do pretty good. So I just wanted to share that with you. So thank you. Do you have any questions?
Board? Well, I know the hour is getting later, and we need to move on. But I just want to make a quick, observation about Lieutenant Sharp. I've known her since I've been a trustee, starting in 2006. And when you talk about her core strengths as a police officer, I would say community engagement, and I would offer is near the top. And I've seen her in action in several instances over the years with communities and neighborhoods who are having problems, and meetings that I've attended with her. And she just is a rock star in that regard. So I want to commend you again.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Agreed. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's our last presentation. So as promised, we wanted to circle back at the meeting prior to March 15th and be able to have one last opportunity to discuss issue 3 and its impact on our roads, our parks, and our community center. Over the course of the last probably 90 days, the leadership team's been engaged in probably 25 to 30 different presentations with various groups throughout the community to talk about the facts surrounding issue 3. We held 3 community forums throughout the township, and while I would have appreciated or would have liked to seen more attendance, we do recognize that time that people have to spend on events like that is sometimes precious, which is why we wanted to do one final push tonight so that we could try to get the information out so that people can make informed decisions when it comes to issue 3. So we've talked a lot over the past 4 years about our budget challenges, and I don't think it's any secret to look at where we've been when we look at our non-safety departments in particular, our general fund, our zoning department, our parks, our community center, our administration. We've driven down our administrative personnel from 16.5 in 2011 down to 9 in 2015. And we've talked a lot tonight about the steps our employees have taken with regards to cuts to their salaries, cuts in their health care, meaning that they're contributing more. You can look at the general fund expenditures. We've heard a lot about, you don't need issue 3, just spend down your reserves. Well, I think this slide shows that since 2011, we had a cash balance in our general fund of $9 million in 2011. At the end of 2015, we've spent that down to $3.9 million. And not all of that spending has been strategic because a lot of things has happened over time where we've chosen to invest in parks and things that require ongoing maintenance. But we did make some significant cuts in 2015 with regards to the amount of funding we provide our senior center. We eliminated our park seasonal workers last year, and we received a numerous amount of complaints from our public with regards to the condition of our parks, and we've had to increase some of our fees. Last year, we also saw our general fund expenditures spend money in capital investment with underground utilities, road resurfacing, a limited amount of road resurfacing, and our safe routes to schools. When you look at public services, and I think it's important to note that when you think about our public services department, which is our roads and our parks, and I'll show you a slide later that talks about the responsibilities of maintaining our park systems and our right-of-ways and our catch basins and our roads and our streets and our sealing and our resurfacing, the list goes on and on and on. We do receive funding from our state from 4 different purposes, and in 2016, we're slated to receive $1.8 million in revenue. But we're slated to spend $2 million just to maintain our current public services programs and services, whether that's right-of-way, salt removal, or salt purchases, snow removal, anything associated with public services. This does not include any investments in public infrastructure. And when I say public infrastructure, I'm talking about patching roads. So when you look at that budget deficit up there for 2022, projected at $1.5 million, if we don't do anything to change the direction, putting no money into roads, we're going to have to spend our general fund reserves just to offset that deficit if we want to continue to maintain the parks we have, the roads we have to some degree, whether it's crack sealing or patching or those limited things that we can do. We've lost our dedicated road services or road funding sources. In 2001, we had a dedicated road levy. Once that levy failed, we utilized state money from the general fund to do road public infrastructure, such as paving and resurfacing.
In 2011, we lost that $1.5 million. We really started to get into what we would consider a reactionary road program. So when you look at a dedicated source of funding for public infrastructure in 2001, today we're at 2016, we've lost 15 years of investment in our public infrastructure. And I'll talk a little bit about the magnitude of what it's going to take to get us out of that. So our goals are to provide a reliable infrastructure system to facilitate public safety, commerce, and public convenience, and to preserve our neighborhoods, our property values, our community, and our quality of life. And you're going to hear me talk a lot about quality of life and the values that we have as a community tonight. So what have we done to engage our community in this process? This is not a decision that we took lightly. We actually did a focus group in the summer of 2015 that involved approximately 80 residents in attendance. We opened that focus group up to anybody that wanted to attend, and we had a lot of suggestions. We had a lot of suggestions that suggested closing our parks, selling our parks, close the senior center, sell our community center. As I talk about the value, and when you think about community, I would argue that while those are options, until you give your community a choice in the decision to whether they want to fund those things, I think it would be irresponsible for us to make a decision to close a park or to close a community center without at least giving the community an opportunity to step up and see whether that's something that they value. Because while I think everybody in this room would say having a quality park system, having a senior center are all important things that bring about a great community, none of those are required as a part of township government. Our sole purpose, as we heard tonight, is police, fire, and I'm going to add roads to that, maintaining our public infrastructure. But I would argue very strongly that parks and a senior center is a vital part of having a quality community. The other thing we did is a community survey. We did a scientific survey, partnering with NKU at no cost, to survey our residents on how they felt about a levy. 60% of those surveyed stated that they would support an issue at $70 a year per $100,000 home. I had a question asked of me today. Actually, it came through from a member of a focus group that said, when we had this focus group, you asked the question, would you support $70 a year for $100,000 value? But if you look at the ballot language and you take 20 cents per $100 in valuation, it comes up to $200. That seems to be significantly different than the $70. I think it's important to remind people that the assessment rate in Ohio is 35% of market value. So you're paying 35% of that $100,000. So 35% of $200 is $70. So if you have a home valued $100,000 home, issue 2 or issue 3 will cost you $70 a year or 20 cents a day to provide the things that I'm going to talk about here in a minute. So issue 3 is a 2 mil levy for 5 years. And I can't emphasize enough that this is just a 5-year levy. In 5 years, our community will decide what happens next. We don't know what's going to happen in the next 3 to 5 years. What we do know is that we're 15 years behind in investing in public infrastructure, and it's going to take every dime that we can muster out of issue 3, plus the Rumpke settlement and any other potential surplus that we may have above some reserve level balance to be able to put into our public infrastructure to get us on a positive trend forward. So if we're successful in lobbying a new governor to give us more money back, we may not need to renew issue 3 in 5 years. If we can get something back, issue 3 may look much different. I will advocate that we will always need a dedicated source for public infrastructure. You just can't pave a road and expect it to last forever. It's going to last 15 to 20 years depending on how you take care of it. But we need to do whatever we can to make that money stretch. If we can lobby for more money, we can change how townships are funded, then maybe we don't need that 2 mils in 5 years. So right now, all issue 3 is about is the next 5 years. And our community will be able to evaluate how we spend that money the next time we ask them to support, if we ask them to support. Issue 3 will generate about $2.1 million. This proposal is to take exactly $1.5 million, if not more, but a minimum of $1.5 million out of issue 3 and put it directly into road resurfacing. The Rumpke settlement is going to provide $1.25 million in cash right out of the gate. So we're going to take that $1.25 million plus the $1.5 million, and that's going to go right into roads. As you can see here, We've tried to take some steps over the past 3 to 4 years. Instead of just coming out and asking for a levy, we've tried to take some steps to make and improve the conditions better for our residents. Whether we talk about electric aggregation, the waste recycling contract, even the Northwest schools just passed a reduction in their millage to try to save the community money. So while issue 3 will increase taxes $70 per 100,000 value, I think it's important to recognize that we have taken steps as a community to try to look out for the bottom line for our community. You can see the condition of our roads. 70% of our roads are in poor or failed condition. Based on the Pavement Condition Index, which is a metric that is used by the Army Corps of Engineers. I'm not going to debate whether this is the best way to measure, but what I am going to tell you is that we're going to use data to drive our decisions. Steve Reutelsofer, I think I got that correct, a little complicated there, but I'll get it, is coming on board as our new Director of Public Services, and he's going to talk tonight about a bid package that we're getting ready to go out for bids in April to do some repaving work based on a decision this board made in 2015 to strategically invest $1 million of our reserves plus the Rumpke money to get a jump start on this program. Because if issue 3 passes on March 15th, that money will not come in until 2017. So we're getting ahead of the curve, and we're going to try to address $2.2 million in road improvements in 2016 as a result of our desire to spend down the reserves by $1 million and to use the Rumpke money. Since 2001, since that dedicated levy source, our roads have deteriorated from a 71.6 rating, which was a satisfactory condition, down to a 40.1, which is very poor. You can see on that graph that in 2011, we lost $1.5 million in general fund, and at that point in time, we stopped investing in our public infrastructure. This is just an illustration of what good, satisfactory, fair, poor, very poor, and serious looks like. And I would challenge everybody in this room, as you look at that, 332 of our 447 streets, or 70%, are in those lower 2 categories. I challenge you to drive around to our community and make that judgment yourself. Our streets are in vast need of an injection in public investment. So, what is the return on the investment to our public? Issue 3, 70% of the money is going to go right into the streets. Issue 3, combined with other resources, will allow us to pave 5 to 7 miles a year at an estimated annual cost of $2.5 to $3.4 million. Why is that number important? Because 5 years from now, you can judge us based on the decisions we make over the next 5 years on whether we did what we told you we're going to do. Issue 3 is going to allow us to partner with the Hamilton County engineer to obtain funding for deteriorating county roads. I've heard the argument, if you live on a yellow striped street, this doesn't impact you. I disagree. Issue 3 is going to allow us to take an amount of money and leverage with county skip dollars to possibly put some money into maybe fixing East Miami River Road or Harrison Avenue or other county roads. If you go down on Harrison Avenue, the good part of Harrison Avenue is done because of a partnership between Green Township and the Hamilton County engineer. It stopped at Colerain because we have no money to invest. Issue 3 will allow us to partner to also help those residents that live on county roads. We can capitalize on state capital skip dollars. We haven't applied for skip funding in several years because we don't have the match. It takes about 40%. If you look at some of our worst roads, those that are rated as a 0, it takes a total reconstruction of those roads. Take it down to bare dirt and build it from bottom up. You can't do that with the kind of money we're talking about. So it's going to take a partnership with those skip dollars to leverage those fundings. If issue 3 passes, Steve will begin immediately looking at a skip application for the fall of 2016 to be funded in 2017. He's going to work with the Hamilton County Engineer's Office to see what kind of county roads we're looking at and can we work together to improve the rating and the possibility of funding for both the county and the township. Issue 3 will restore critical staffing necessary to maintain our roads. I'm not talking about bringing 15 or 16 people on. I'm talking about bringing 3 or 4 people back to be able to maintain our roads and our parks. Because if you think about the roads, there's really three major components. You got a reconstruction, which is a total redo, a resurfacing, which is like a 2-inch overlay, but then you also have to maintain through a crack and sealing program that 70% and above road to keep it from deteriorating and keeping the water from getting under the road and deteriorating faster. You need people to do that. So we'll contract the work out for the paving, but our guys can go out there and crack seal and patch and try to take those medium to better roads and make them last longer. Because this program is about making our roads last for as long as they can. What about our parks? The park maintenance, upgrades, and programs have declined due to loss in state funding. Issue 3 will allow us to bring back the 4th of July celebration and summer camps in 2017. Issue 3 is going to stabilize our rental rates for our shelter houses and our ball fields. It'll eliminate the parking pass program. And as I mentioned a minute ago, we're talking about bringing a total of 3 to 4 people back, not for each department, but for the entire public services department, so we can maintain our parks and make them a proud place for our residents to visit. And what about our seniors? We've got a great senior program. We have a great partnership with the YMCA. It's not a core program or a core responsibility of this township to offer a senior center, but we have one. And we're operating in a much lower capacity today than we did 10 years ago. We used to have a director, a program director, a director of the center, administrative assistants, several people up there teaching programs. Now it's down to a partnership with the YMCA. We are not in the core business of operating a senior center, so we're going to partner with the experts. The YMCA has a senior program. They're running out of space. By partnering with the YMCA, they can come in, do it better, smarter, and cheaper. Issue 3 is about maintaining the funding that's currently generated in the senior center. We generate enough money off of rentals to keep it going, but if we don't find a dedicated funding source for our roads, we're going to be forced to take the money that we get from the senior center, whether it's through cost reductions or revenue we receive, and divert that into our road program, because the road program is a core value of township. Issue 3 will provide limited upgrades. If you've been into the senior center and you look at the senior side, we need to put some new carpet, we need to put some paint, maybe some new furniture. We're not talking about long-term dollars. We're talking about one-time capital upgrades to give them something back on the return of their investment. So what's our action plan? 2.1 million generated, $1.5 million earmarked for road resurfacing. Depending on whether you amortize the road over 20 years or 15 years, we're going to do between 5.5 and 7.5 miles a year. Our PCIs dropped from 71.6 to 40 due to lack of funding. If we want to achieve positive improvement, we're going to have to pave in excess of $2.5 million a year. So just taking $1.25 million from Rumpke is not going to solve the problem. I've heard the number mentioned $2 million. We're not getting $2 million off this Rumpke settlement. We're getting $1.25 million in cash, and when Hughes Road is vacated, it will kick another $400,000 in. So that's $1.65 million added to issue 3. We can make positive changes over the next 5 years. And I'm going to challenge our Financial Advisory Committee to benchmark what is an adequate fund balance for non-safety services and for safety services. And we're going to look at that target balance. And if there is an opportunity for us to take some of our reserves and spend them down to a target balance that is still responsible spending, that allows us to turn that money and put more money into roads, I'm going to advocate to this board that we do that, so that in 5 years we can pave as many road miles in this township as possible. So with that, I just have a couple slides here just for comparison purposes. When you think of other facts as it relates to the roads, we have 9,000 street signs, 100 road miles, 350 cul-de-sacs, storm sewers, fleet maintenance, facility and grounds, right-of-way maintenance, inspections, contractors' permits, and snow removal. That $1.8 million in revenue that I told you we received from the state pays for all those non-infrastructure type services. In 2012, we had 20 people in the roads department, 13 full-time, 2 part-time, and 5 seasonal. Today, we have 11 full-time, period. Tonight, we have some action to bring some seasonal workers back. So we need to do more to maintain our roads. Our parks, we have 232 acres, or 11 parks. We have to mow the properties, 11 historic cemeteries. We have 2 river access ramps. We have snow removal on township property, landscaping, and special events. In 2012, we had 31 people in the Parks Department, And with the seasonal workers we hired, or we're projected to hire this year, we're going to have 16. And our senior center, in our community center, we have 2 halls, 2 kitchens, art room, music room, game room, computer center, rentals, senior programming. In 2012, we had 6 people, 3 full-time, 3 part-time. Today we have 1 part-time and 1 seasonal. So I hope that helps to illustrate the need for issue 3. I will be available after the meeting today for any residents that want to ask their questions during citizens' address. I'll be available after the meeting, and we'll continue to try to do what we can to provide information to our public between now and March 15th.
Thanks, Mr. Rowan. Excellent presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move on to citizens' address. Paul Jansen.
Thank you for your patience, by the way. It's been a long meeting.
How you doing, Jeff?
Good.
Look at this, the 2 young guns sitting next to you. Hope you guys are as committed to this township as Jeff is.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I didn't think I'd ever be here talking about a levy that's going to save a senior center, fix roads, and
Save our parks.
Save our parks. But what I'm amazed at is, why is there opposition to this? I mean, here's the deal. My wife and I don't go to the parks. We don't use the senior center. And my road, pretty good. But you know what? I want to do the right thing. And the right thing is to make sure the people that use the parks and need road improvements and love the senior center, they get that, you know? Here's the thing. Everybody's selfish these days. What's in it for me, right? What the hell is in it for me? Here's what's in it for everybody in this room. Do the right damn thing. You know, every time you have one of these things, people come up and they got their own little personal agenda, right? They're going to bitch about something. They want to micromanage Jim or these guys or what Dan does. I saw so many figures up here, it was making my head hurt. You guys put so much effort into this. I don't know 1% of what's going on, but I trust you. I trust you, and I trust you, and I trust you that you're doing the right thing here. So when I see people come up here and they're going to bitch and moan because some little personal thing on their agenda doesn't go right, and they're going to leave here, and they're going to complain about the township and the police department and Dan Malloy, and I got 3 minutes left. So it's amazing to me, just amazing. This levy should pass by 100% of the township. I mean, it's parks, right? It's the senior center. It's fixing roads. This is not a levy about people making an extra $20,000 a year. So sometimes we got to just step it up and say, Jim, are you wasting our money? Absolutely not. So you know what? I'm trusting Jim. I saw everything so transparent up there that I'm not going to come in here and argue about something I don't know about. I know this. We don't have time to be self-centered in Colerain Township, right? Our own little personal agendas. We need to all pull together with this thing. Because like I said, I don't want to tell any of these people out here, all these people, I don't want to tell you, I'm going to take away your park because I don't want to vote for this. I don't want to tell any of you, you know what, we're going to close the senior center because I don't use it. You know what I've learned? I'm not selfish. So I guess what I'm saying is, my wife said, look, you got to behave and you just can't cuss. And I said, oh, I'm going to really try not to. But we just need to get our heads out of our butt here, right? I'll do it that way, a little better. Because, you know what? All we're trying to do is take care of people that love these things, right? And just because we don't use it Too bad. It's good for the township. It keeps the property values up. And I hear these things like, well, why don't we close the park? Once we do that, and we start down that slippery slope, the next time we need money, we're going to close the second park. And then we're going to close the third park. And then we're not going to have parks. And Colerain Township is known for the parks. And I don't want to tell somebody that wants to go to the park this year with their kids to play in the park that the park's closed. Because we can't afford 50 cents a day to pay for this levy. So we got to start doing the right thing. And you know what? We got to start caring for this community and care for each other. And all this little personal bull crap, we got to shelf it. Because it's getting old and it's getting sickening. So, anyway, thanks for having me, Jeff.
Jansen.
All right.
Thank you. Candor is good. Lois Deichel.
How you doing?
Good evening.
I'm here for perhaps a very minor problem that I have observed recently. In our community that I've lived in for 33 years, it's been a very good community.
Where would that be, ma'am?
Pardon me?
Where would that be, generally, if you don't mind me asking?
I live off of Livingston Road.
Okay.
The interesting thing that I've observed lately is you talk about pollution. We've got air pollution, we've got garbage pollution. I've been observing pole pollution. I've seen utility poles go up right next to other utility poles, and none of them come down. If you look at the corner of Springdale and Colerain Avenue, it is just sickening. If you look beyond where you're supposed to be driving, and you just see the poles. Do we have, some ordinances that can control the proliferation of poles? It sounds so silly to me right now.
Is it poles or the proliferation of signs put on poles?
No, just poles.
Poles.
There is a utility pole with lights. If you go down Blue Rock, a utility pole with lights, and then they put up a pole right next to it with some other device that I don't know what it's for. But when you look at the corner of, especially the corner of Colerain and Springdale, which is supposed to be our place where we've got this beautiful memorial, thank you, and it's lovely, except what do we see? We see utility poles, and then somebody else puts up light posts next to the other utility poles. It is just obscene. So my concern is pole pollution. There's too much of it.
Okay.
Is there something that can be done?
Yeah, I have two thoughts on that. First, with regard to the Memorial Plaza corner, the good news is we haven't hit the final phase of the streetscape yet to bury the utilities there. Mr. Birkenauer, can you give us, as Deichel, a general real scope of the project real quickly, and then timetable for burying of the utilities?
Great question. The trustees a few years ago allocated a capital improvement to bury utilities at Colerain and Springdale. So the poles that you see are going to be down very soon. Unfortunately, we don't have direct control over the utilities. Cincinnati Bell, they are the last line to be on those poles before we take those poles down. Now, this is just going to be a little bit east, a little bit west on Springdale Road, and north and south on Colerain Avenue. It's going to cost about $980,000. It's not cheap by any means. But this was, in our opinion, the trustees at the time that went for the capital improvement, one of the worst areas of the township in terms of visual pollution, overhead clutter. Once that occurs, then in the summer of this year, ODOT's going to come in and put in the black mast arms, so you'll see no of the guide wire poles from ODOT as well. And that was a safety grant that we were able to get through ODOT. Those mast arms in a huge intersection like Springdale are about $275,000. We're able to secure a grant from ODOT for that, and we're going to redo the signals as well. So it is going to be a drastic improvement. I wish I had direct control of the utilities and say get off the lines right away. ODOT's a great example. They don't even have direct oversight over the utilities. The northernmost widening of Colerain Avenue was delayed because the utilities wouldn't get off the poles when asked. So the only thing we can do as a township is lobby them to abandon poles that are not used, and we've done that with the sidewalk project as well. We've got rid of a couple, and if issue 3 passes, if we look at the potential in our infrastructure when it is improved, when we go down a street and repave it, if there's some poles that can go down, hopefully that can happen as well.
Oh, thank you. At least you listened to me, and I got some answers.
Yeah, I did. How far down are they burying the utilities from that intersection?
It's if you look at, there's really not any poles on the Northgate Mall side, so you're going to go just beyond Half Price Books, down past White Castle, and then down north past Walgreens, and then south down to about the end of Cheddar's. I'm sorry, west down to about the end of Cheddar's.
What about Springdale? How far east and west do you know?
West down to the end of Cheddar's on Springdale. Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Deitchel.
Thank you.
Tamara Kunkel. Tamara Kunkel. Okay, you're good to go.
Thanks.
Stephanie Wright.
Good evening. Mr. Ritter, thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. I tried to get a little time at the last meeting, but you denied my request to speak at that time. I was wondering...
Player and spam, that was outside of the citizens address portion.
Correct, it was. However, on the paper that you have for us to fill out to request permission to speak, it does state that something can be addressed after this initial time if one of the trustees deems it necessary. You yourself asked Mr. Mason if he would like to speak. He did so, and then I raised my hand hoping to be extended the same courtesy, which I was not given. The question that I had was about the election of the trustees.
Election or appointment?
Maybe a little bit of both. We did have an election. Mr. Enso won the new position as the trustee. And then I was a little confused. We had someone step aside and take another position. And then I'm sorry, I'm not even going to attempt her name. Enderhees was appointed a trustee. I was just curious about his interest in becoming a trustee and why he did not participate in the election, if that was something he felt passionate about.
Well, absolutely. I mean, I've been passionate about the Colerain community all my life. You know, I've lived here, I was raised here. There were choices that I've made in the past about not to run based on the timing in my life. I went to law school and I graduated in 2012. While I was in law school, I was working full time, working 40 to 50 hours a week, going to school at night 3 to 4 nights a week, studying in my time away from that. I've just now established myself in my career, and my wife was pregnant also during the last campaign season. She gave birth in October, and so when this opportunity came up, I just felt like the timing was right for me.
Perfect. And how did that opportunity come up? Did you pursue us, or did the township pursue you?
Absolutely. So when I applied with about 20 hours left in the window. I learned of the application process through the board trustee meeting, which I had attended in January. And so at that point, that's when I decided that I'm going to apply.
Okay. And I do not know a lot about politics and how things transpire, but as a citizen, just kind of occurred to me that we had an election, there were votes cast, and obviously the community spoke on who they felt would be a great trustee. Why was the person who scored the less number of votes down the scale not appointed to a trustee position?
Well, that would have been Melinda Reinhardt. She came in second, and she did not apply for the vacancy. So I would say that out of hand. third one, he wasn't in the room tonight, Garrett Pace. Actually, the fourth one is here too.
He was here for a little bit.
I can't recall if I don't think they applied either. So that's the easy answer to that one. Can I take a run at your other question real quick?
Please.
On the last meeting.
Please.
So you raise a good point, the double standard. I don't like double standards any more than you. I have to take accountability for that. There was a double standard, and I think I made a mistake in hindsight doing that. I think throughout my career, the meetings I've run in my day job and when I've been president of the board in the past have been, I'd like to think, disciplined, focused, and hopefully respectful. And our first meeting of the year in January, I got off to the right start, I thought. Everybody adhered to that. Got a little bit off the rails at the last meeting. I'm hoping that doesn't continue. But nevertheless, what I'm trying to say is going forward, it's the citizens' address or bust. I'm going to make a commitment to you that we can't have ad hoc, So I have to take accountability for that. I made a mistake, and I'm going to try to do a better job going forward running our meetings.
I appreciate that. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Rachel McKinney.
How you doing?
Good evening. I'm a little shorter than the rest. Thank you for listening to my comments this evening, and I hope everyone understands I'm not trying to be selfish in any manner when I make these points. I hope I'm a familiar face around here. I was involved in city politics where I lived prior to moving to Colerain Township in 2011. I have been able to come to as many meetings as possible while working a full-time job and also obtaining my master's degree. If you look around, I'm probably one of the youngest people in this room. That's very disparaging to me. Unfortunately, not as many younger people care about politics, their local government, and being involved, but it's something I hold near and dear to my heart, and that's why I bring up these few items. When attending the focus group last summer, about 80 residents, we all came up with very good ideas. The overwhelming consensus of the group was to put a levy on the ballot. My opinion was that the levy should be separate as far as roads, parks, and the senior center were concerned. This levy that you're putting on the ballot does not specifically earmark those funds for roads. I understand it cannot be done. The ballot language says so. However, I'm not going to wait 5 years to hold you all accountable for how you spend my money. I can hold you accountable the next election, and I will, if I find that those funds are being misappropriated. I don't have a problem with supporting our parks and senior centers. I do have a problem with the good ideas that were generated at that focus group basically being thrown to the wayside. Other than the report that was given of the focus group that evening, I received no further communication on the matter. I felt that I had very good ideas. I have been greatly involved in community organizations and raising funds, sponsorships, and helping our community. I was not contacted about Taste of Colerain, even though I provided my information to help volunteer. And unfortunately, now I'm too busy with school to help you out. And that's sad, because I'm a young, vibrant community member that can invest myself in this community. Another thing I discovered was that we're planning on getting rid of revenue via the parking permits, but spending money on a fireworks show. Fireworks show I probably won't attend, I'll be all honest. I have no problem paying for my entertainment. If I choose to go downtown, if I choose to do something at a different park that's not in the township, I have no problem with that. But why would you get rid of revenue? And what I was told was it's only $30,000 to $40,000. Well, $30,000 to $40,000 can put up a really good fireworks show. I know Rossie's expensive, but I'm sure they'd take our money. We don't want to charge our residents possibly for going to the parks. Okay, then give them free parking permits, but let's charge the other people that are coming to our soccer games that are from other teams that are not within Colerain Township. I think that's fair. If you invest yourself in a sporting activity or something of that nature, you're going to expect to pay a fee. And I don't think a $10 parking pass is a lot to ask. I even said at that focus group that I would be willing to pay $100 or $200 to sponsor a senior to pay their dues at the senior center if that had to be raised. And I think if marketed correctly, a lot of other people would be willing to do the same thing. My last point of interest this evening was the Little Cards lease agreement. I know, I guess we're going to pass that this evening. We had this lease agreement, and they defaulted on it. And we said, okay, we're going to turn around and we're going to give you 2014 rates, not the raised rates that we were going to do, because we don't want to bother with it. We had to clean up your mess last time. Let's just go back to what you were paying before. My guess is they didn't want to pay for it. And that's why we have another lease agreement with Little Cards that they will or will not default on based upon how we choose to enforce it. But to make a lease agreement effective until December 31st, 2031, when they've already proven that they couldn't handle it the first time, to give them that much more of a chance is beyond me.
Ms. McKinney, you raised some good points. First of all, thank you for serving on the focus group. I was aware that a lot of points and suggestions were raised that night. Mr. Rowan, how would you respond to her point that they just weren't followed up on, adequately vetted?
Sure.
I think it's a valid point that you make. We should.
Well, I'd like to respond on a number of different fronts. Yeah, I mean, I can take responsibility for lack of follow-up. I think if you have been engaged in this community for the past 4 years and you've seen some of the cuts that we've had to make from a staffing perspective, while I don't like to make excuses, quite frankly, I don't have a marketing person that can follow up and say, hey, you want to come sign up? I look at this as a two-way street. I want residents to come to me and stand outside my door and say, put me on a committee, and I'll do that. I don't have the manpower to reach out like I'd like to. Now, I will tell you, we're doing a benchmarking exercise right now with marketing and outreach to figure out how we can do a better job of reaching our community. We're evaluating our Waycross contract that's coming up this year. How many residents are we reaching on Waycross? Or could that $65,000 be better served through a newsletter or some other way to reach our community? So I'll take responsibility for the lack of follow through on some of that. Quite frankly, my priority has been moving forward with the levy to get the funding and then circle back and look at some of those other opportunities, whether it's volunteer. And I met with the Colerain Community Association right after the focus group. They're in need of volunteers. Mr. Acton suggested he could bring volunteers. I introduced him to the group. So we have opportunities for volunteers. I just can't do it all myself. So that's one part. I'd like to talk a little bit about the Little Cards lease because I think there's a little bit of confusion. The lease that we had in place last year was with the Colerain Athletic Association, not Little Cards.
Okay.
So the original lease agreement that was in place between Groesbeck Civic Association and Colerain Township as part of the land swap associated with the development of Groesbeck Park came with the basically the same terms and conditions that are spelled out tonight with the Groesbeck Civic Association. Then the Groesbeck Civic Association had a lease agreement with Little Cards. So while we are continuing to operate the parks on the athletic side, we have never maintained the football field and the Little Cards property. That's always been a separate lease. All we're doing is, since the Groesbeck Civic Association kind of went defunct, is we're trying to honor the intent of the original lease agreement on the land swap to let the Little Cards use it for the length of time that they originally signed up with the GCA. So it's a totally different group.
Okay.
So I just want to clarify that.
So we are sticking with the original charging them the
Absolutely.
rates? Okay.
Yes.
I'm
As
okay
it
with
relates to the parking permits, there was a lot of discussion about whether we should continue the program or not. And for as many people that says, yes, continue it, we had just as many saying, if I'm going to be asked to pay more taxes, I don't want to have to pay parking permits. I would argue that probably 70% of the parking permits we sell are to residents. So if I have to staff the parks and sell permits, then I'm only going to get 30% of the revenue to pay for the people to be out there. I'm not going to make any money. So that's one of the other arguments or rationale for that.
Can you tell me what the approximate cost of this fireworks show is?
Well, we've always traditionally raised money through sponsorships for the Rossi fireworks. Where the cost for the township's gotten involved was with the staffing, the police, the public works, all the people that it takes to staff that on our property. So if the 4th of July comes back, what I anticipate is that the Summer Events Committee will add the fireworks to their plate. All we're going to do is free up staff, pay overtime costs, and allow our police officers to provide the labor cost to the event.
Can I add one more addendum to that? Taste of Colerain, is it true that the township picks up the cost for police officers for that as well? It's not paid for by
That's
the
correct.
proceeds?
In fact, we made the decision back when we made some cuts. We originally were going to cut both programs, and it was decided to let one community event continue. The decision was made to continue with the Taste versus the 4th of July, primarily because the 4th of July was always on a holiday, and we had to pay double time and extra time, and the cost was much more.
Specific to the Taste of Colerain, the township's paid for police officer staffing since 2000 and approximately 6. So that's been a 10-year.
I've been involved with a event triple that size, and we've never, the event paid for all police and fire.
Well, the idea was with a township event, we're working, yes, correct, and to keep it under control, and we would take care of that piece outside of maintain the funds for the services and the event stuff rather than just security. So it was a give and take on both sides.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Yeah, if I could say, I actually asked the same two questions that you had yesterday to Frank, actually, so I appreciate that. And if I understand correctly, you did the Taste of Blue Ash, or was it?
No, I've done West Fest for multiple years.
Yeah, we would love to have you on the Summer Events Committee or something when your time frees up,
Yes.
for sure. We would love to have you, so thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you. Thanks for your willingness to serve. Rich McVeigh.
Rich McVeigh?
I'm sorry?
Rich McVeigh. Thank you. Who paid for this?
Township.
Township paid for this, and it's kind of it's education versus saying vote yes. If it's education, could I post on the website stuff that deals with this? I mean, would that be if I made the PowerPoint presentation? Would you guys put it up there?
Probably since I generated that, probably not.
So you wouldn't let a citizen share information on the website that's educational. That's what I hear you saying. So is that right?
That would probably not be our policy.
Wouldn't be your policy. So just a couple things, Jim. Relative to the presentation that's made, maybe I can add a little more perspective to what you've already shared. I was looking at this sheet that you shared, and I got a small one here, which was the fund balances for the general fund and consolidated roads. You go into your website now, and the fund balances that you have available for the general fund are like almost $5 million, and in this sheet you say it's 3.9. The fund balance you have in the consolidated road is over about $1 million. So there's a difference between what you're sharing with the public and what's actually existing.
Mr. McVeigh, those numbers were as of December 31st of 2015.
And today you have more money available.
And we have revenue coming in, and we have expenditures
going
going
our
out.
revenue in two buckets, beginning and middle of the year.
It's the cash balance. So anyhow, that's the cash balance that he's reporting. The other thing I would say, we have some bonds maturing. What's going to happen here with the admin building and the Stone Center, they're going to free up another $275,000 in the end of this year. And then the end of 2017, we're going to free up another $260,000 from the park. So we're going to get about $500,000 money that we have been paying for principal and interest that we no longer have to pay.
That's not correct.
That's new cash.
That's not correct.
Why isn't it correct? You said when it's ending.
No, I said our bond, we have debt retirement that is going to be retired over the next 4 years. In 2022, our debt's retired. If you look at my debt service forecast, we're going to go from $800,000 to like $695,000. That's not $500,000.
What I looked at is the data that you shared with the Finance Committee in June that said when the bonds were going to mature, okay, and what the principal and interest payments was. So
You're probably looking, you don't understand fund accounting, do you? Because the TIF funds are a separate fund earmarked, and a lot of the debt service that you're referring to is not part of the general fund. That's the tax increment financing.
We'll get to that. Okay, so I'm just saying around the bonds that are maturing in the next 2 years, because the principal and instruments will go away, we're going to have an extra $500,000.
That's not correct.
It is correct. The Rumpke settlement gives you $1.25 million. Okay, so that's like close to 1.8. You've talked about that with the two of these. You have an existing. Jim. It's from your website, so hold on. Just hold on. We're trying to be fair and balanced.
Well, you
Okay.
speak a lot of half-truths, Mr.
No, I'm
McVeigh.
not. I'm using your data from your thing. I didn't call you half-truths. I'm just using data from your finance site. So, I mean, just give me the credit. I looked at your data. Now, you take these principal interest payments, which are going away, it's $500,000. You talked about the Rumpke thing. You get about $1.8 million in your consolidated road fund now. That's your numbers. So in total, you're up to about $3.5 million you have available for road work. We have it right now without this levy. Now you're going to get another million. You have another $1 million of cash available in Stone Creek that's going to become available when that thing closes. There's $1.3 million in there. You're going to have that. So you're washing money. That's what I'm telling you. You also have a loan outstanding to the CMHA for over $200,000 that you need to call back. Those guys got lots of money. You know, you did it to do the John Rose project. I understand that. You loaned him the money. Get it back from them. Bernie's got lots of money. I know he does. I'm in his budgets as well. So what I'm saying is there is a lot of money available, and you got new cash coming in. And the new cash we have coming in because of these principal interest payments, plus the Rumpke deal, offset what you've lost from your local government fund and from your estate taxes. It's a wash. It's a wash. So we aren't, you know, and I go to the parks. I like the parks. I pay the $10 park. That's not an issue with me. I drive on the roads. I'm just saying you got money. More money than you're sharing with the residents. There are other things you're doing that are disturbing, where you could get more money. You know, we got Kroger getting a 20-year tax break. We got the Escape Theater getting a 10-year tax break. We got the Tabani guys getting a 10-year tax break. We're giving $3,000 a year at the chamber. And it goes on and on and on, okay? So there is a lot of money, okay, if you look at it. Now, in my accounting practice, we look after that money, and we make sure where it is, and we know we have it available, and we use it for our roads. And I think you have enough money for your roads. Now, the roads themselves, I've covered this before, and I'm glad Steve is here, because there are more cost-effective ways to do our road work. We're spending, pick the number, $800,000 a mile. Some people are doing it for a lot less. There's a lot better ways for us to get value from our road dollars. And the other thing I would say, if you drive the roads, and go right over here to Wood Trail, the road in our index is described as failing. The road is not failing. So we have some roads that need to be fixed. I admit that. But 70% of them aren't failing. Thank you. And our residents need to understand that.
Bernie Field, go ahead.
I was going to say, why didn't we call back the CMHA?
Well, first of all, we have a loan to the CIC that we lent the CIC so that they could purchase some property for the John Rose development. We are expected, once the bonds are settled with CMHA, we have a contract with CMHA to sell that property to CMHA. They will give the $360,000 back to the CIC. The CIC will repay the general fund. That $365,000 is in the 2016 revenue budget of the township.
Thank you.
Last year, I guess it was last year, they was talking about the poop, I guess, down in the city. And I guess it came back in the news again. So I guess my question is what are we doing proactively to tell them we don't want it out here? That's the question. I mean, I brought it up to you all, at least you, a couple, last year. But we don't need any more of the city's poop or anything else that goes with the city. That's that issue. There was a thing in the paper Sunday about all the property values and county here and Butler County and et cetera. And what I did is I went through there and out of the 12 townships in the county, Colerain's property values are the lowest. The lowest out of 12 townships. And I guess that's so upsetting to me. We never used to be that way, I can tell you that. We never used to be that way. But I'm just going by this right here, we had 900 and some sales and whatever. And yet we say that we want to be best in class. And I've heard that for the last 3 years. And those are words. It's not reality. Because best in class and we're at the bottom, I don't know what best in class is. Does that mean at the bottom? Because that's where we're at today. And I guess what's so upsetting to me is when I was on this board up there, I worked my butt off for years to get a property maintenance code. And did we enforce it today? Heck no. Hey, we haven't enforced it for a bunch of years, Jeff. Don't tell me I know.
I recall you mentioning at one of the community meetings we recently had, you commended the plan that we enacted a couple years ago to put it in the hands of the police and retire the zoning inspector.
But I've made calls, and there's a phone number you call, you don't even get a response. Nothing happens. They even tell you they're not going to respond. What kind of a venue is that to call and say we're not going to respond to you, but give us whatever? And I've done that, and nothing happens. I guess beyond that, we need to take a step back. I mean, roads will help, whatever. But I've seen $1 million houses on gravel roads. So it isn't about the roads causing the problem of property values. I tell you what will have a problem, though, is another levy, another taxes. We're third highest out of the 12 townships. And yet we've been for the biggest part of forever, we've been getting $1 million from Rumpke a year that other townships didn't get. I'm just saying we got a real spending problem. And I looked at a lot of the things we had up there. We're comparing our guys, police and fire, with cities that have property They have tell me. Thank you. Income taxes, city income taxes. That's not even fair. That's not even close. If we're going to compare anything, our police or our fire, it should be with the townships within Hamilton County. That's a true comparison, not just cherry picking. Well, yes, what you say, I say, we can differ. But the bottom line is how do you think? Do you really think that another levy, another taxes, our property values in a tank, and you think that's going to help? If you think so, I suggest you get some basic economic experience because you don't have it if you think that. And I'm sorry I get this way right now, but it's very upsetting when I see something going. I've been here longer than, I don't know about you, but all of you together living here, and I pay a lot of taxes. I don't mind paying them. I just hate to see the money wasted, and that's what I see. Thank you very much.
I disagree. Thank you. Mr. Acton.
I've got a lot to cover tonight, and I know I've got 5 minutes time. But Jim, if you'll turn off the clock there for a minute, I have something I want to pass out to the 3 trustees. Educational information.
Steve, will you grab that from? You got it? Oh, okay. Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Steve. Thank you.
Carlos has a copy already, so I'm going to have to get through one. Back at the first of the year, I brought up the subject about prayer and talking to some men of the cloth, to my local priest, and to some other people. They said the moment of silence is what they all would recommend. thank you, Mr. Ritter, for reinstalling that. But I would like to see it for a minute, not for 30 seconds, please. Thank you. One of the participants tonight brought up the subject of the little cards. And as most of you know, I spend time up at the corner of Springdale and Colerain on Tuesdays and Fridays picking up trash that our better citizens don't know what better to do but keep it in their cars. She brought up this question about little cards and also about the baseball facilities that we have in the township. Something I've learned in the last couple of weeks talking to the president of one of the organizations is that this year, Colerain Township will have one 13-year-old, 14-year-old team instead of the 4 to 5 to 6 that they've had in the past. The reasons why, the kids say and the parents say, why should we pay all this extra money for our kids to play in Colerain Township when we can get instruction from other areas? A lot have went to Ross. A lot of them have went to the Forest Park area. A lot of them have moved into Montford Heights. But they will not be paying 8 of their 16 games this year in Colerain Parks. Basically, they'll probably be paying 4 or 5. The question was brought up by the young lady about paying $10 for parking fees. If you go to these other parks, and I've been to many of them all over southwestern Ohio and some in Indiana and northern Kentucky, they don't charge. They have outside visitors come in. The teams that come down from Ross, they were instructed last year to park in Colerain Middle School parking lot. They didn't want to pay $10 to come down here twice a year to play a Colerain team. And I can't blame them. I do the same thing. I pay my $10 to go to the park. And the reason why I go, the corner up here in my book is considered a park. So I park there and I do my duty as I promised my military veterans and also the people of the township. But it's disturbing, very disturbing, to hear such comments as one gentleman was saying here, in my book, come to the meetings and you'll find out what's going on. This is the first time I've ever seen him at this meeting, or any meetings. And I've been coming to him, 5 years now? One out of so many years. Attend the meetings and you'll find out what's going on. As far as issue 3, I think we probably got about the same numbers here, Jim, about 11 or 12. The 3 meetings that we had on the road levy and all, which I hate to call it the road levy, but that's what it's all about, the roads, the roads, the roads. The budget is not increasing in the parks this year at $461,000 again, same as it's been last year. How can, it's 31 at the last 3 meetings, and then we'll say we got, 15 here, say 45 people make a decision on what I'm going to vote on. I am treasurer for the Colerain Residents for Honorable Government. I want that out front. I had a call from Channel 12 News today. How she got my number, I don't know. I know it's public record, but not my cell phone. So somebody here gave her that number. And I wish you would not do it again. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. Mr. Acton, one more point. Since you are the point person on that effort, I have noticed quite a few vote no signs in their public right-of-way, which is in violation of our zoning code. So I'd ask you to consider removing those.
I'm removing yours too.
Absolutely. If there's any,
They are there, and that's what I told you the other night, Jeff. I removed 2 of them from Mr. Niehouse's property.
I observed about 5 just today in the public right-of-way. So
let me know, and I will compare those with yours.
Entrance ramp onto 74 at Colerain, pool in Springdale, just to name a couple. Thanks.
Okay.
Mr. Acting, may I ask you a quick question?
Yes, sir.
You know, you've been all about transparency for years, and I appreciate that, and that's something we value as a leadership team. But I'm a little confused about an email you sent me back on February 12th. You know, we've attended all those community meetings together.
Correct.
You mentioned this email, Mr. Rowan, those that I have spoken to residents and try to educate them on facts about upcoming issue 3 in March. You have basically answered all my questions in regards to issue 3 means of help. Whom can I contact to assist in the passage of issue 3, distribution and placement of signs or other? Regards, Jim Acton. 3 days later, you sent an email to Mr. Insko stating you're against issue 3. Did something happen in that 3-day or 4-day period?
Yes, sir.
Can you?
No comment.
Okay.
All right, let's move on to administrative reports. Mr. Rowan, you want to kick things off?
Excuse me, can I say something? I apologize to the board. I was told you'd open at 7, so I spent my time up at Bridges to get here on time.
Since it's during the citizens address portion,
Yeah.
is right. I think I'm not violating my recently decree. So go ahead, sir.
Just state your name and address, if you don't mind.
But if you could,
Or not your address, forgive me.
but if you could next time, if you could sign in, that'd be great. No, next
You're
time.
good, you're
If you
good,
come
you're good.
again, I would just ask you to sign in. Form.
Not tonight.
Don't, not tonight, no problem.
I'll just write it down.
Yeah. No, sure.
You're good, you're good, you're good, you're good.
You're good.
You're good.
Sorry about this.
No problem. Thanks for your service. You'll look like a veteran.
I'm like you, you're not listening to any questions. Bill Linville, Linville. Linville.
You want this back up and show you what I just said?
10280 September Drive.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Go ahead, sir.
Sorry about this.
All right.
I'm here on that issue 3, the senior center. I've talked to a couple of you. I know you have an agreement with the YMCA. Is that a contract that you have that you pay them X number of dollars a year to do this? And I say they're doing a fine job. I have no complaint there. One complaint is when I went to pay my $20 dues, I made my check out to the YMCA, and I have nothing to do with the YMCA. To me, that was like going to Kroger's and buying $50 of groceries and making my check out to Walmart. I just don't understand it, and neither does a lot of the other seniors understand that. I get a thing that's the money's supposed to go into our funds, but I don't see how putting a check in the YMCA goes in our funds.
Can we ask Mr. Our administrator to give you the rundown on the mechanics of how that relationship and the contract works, real quick?
Absolutely. I'd love to just tell you why we did that. So up until maybe 2014, we've transitioned some of our staff out of the senior center operations. We used to have Marie Springer as our director. We used to have a lady up there that served as administrative assistant. So basically what we've done is we've withdrawn all the staffing costs associated with running the center. So we contract with the YMCA staff because they have a model that works. They know what they're doing from a programming perspective. So we contract with them to offer the service. In 2016, we reduced the amount of the contract by the amount of revenue that used to come in from the members to the township from the membership fees, and now they're just running the membership fees through their organization.
So in the future, if this levy passes, which I'm for the levy, but I agree with somebody else, it's really for the roads and salary. It always does. But I've been here since 1963, and every time I hear somebody saying they want to do the budget, then it's always about salary increases. But if they get this levy, will we still have to pay the dues, or?
Yes. The dues will continue. What issue 3 is going to allow us to do is to continue to have the YMCA operate that program, keep them under contract, keep the electricity on, keep the utility cost on for that building.
Okay, well, thank you.
You're welcome.
And you said you're going to do an audit, like that guy says. I think you definitely need an audit to see who is correct on this money and see where it is going. Because I would like to know, as a citizen here, how much actually went out of our general funds to pay for something stupid like Rumpke. And somebody had to pay that money, and I bet it came out of our general funds.
To contest the lawsuit, you mean?
That lawsuit.
Yeah.
Our insurance picked up a lot.
There was
Somebody had to pay for it, so and we probably did.
insurance paid for a good portion of it, but there was a large chunk that did come out of the general fund over a 10-year period to fund the litigation.
You know,
wasn't picked up by
and
insurance.
that some of this levy's replacing what we gave the Rumpke, or lawyers, I suppose, but it's always that way, so.
Sunk cost, but I would argue too. You mentioned salaries. I got to make another plug that our employees, in my opinion, have made a lot of sacrifices over the last 4 years with salary freezes and other things like that. Our unions have really stepped up, and I will also say that we have the highest medical benefit contribution rate of any township, and I would argue municipality in the region. So I think our employees are making adequate sacrifices. Adequate.
Well, looking at that police and fire, there should be a freeze on some of them guys. Because every time a guy leaves, like Bruce Smith would leave, the fire chief, you bring another guy in and you'll say, oh, we have to give him an extra $10,000 to get him.
He started at $95,000. It was just the opposite. He's making over $10,000 less than Chief Smith did.
Well, I'm just going by other places you see.
Okay.
Just like
Thanks for
this
coming in
one
tonight.
board, they voted their insurance in for $1 a year and stuff
Sure.
like that. And
Okay.
if I find a way, if you guys can find a way to spend my money,
All right.
you seem to do it.
I would argue we give you value for that money, sir.
Ask Mr. Rowe one thing. When you said
I'm sorry, can you come to the microphone so the folks in Waycross Land can hear you?
It just goes on with them. Just real quick, if the levy passes and you were talking about the senior center benefits from it, it's not going to change the amount we pay the Y, correct?
No.
So
It's going to keep it open, you know, and we don't have to rationalize then spreading scarce resources around.
Right. What I don't want to happen or see happen is at some point you guys sell the senior center.
If this levy passes, that will not happen. Well, I'm just speaking for myself. I'm only one of three, but don't want to do that.
All right, there you go.
Yep. So, Mr. Jansen, I'm going to respectfully decline because I think that's out of the spirit of what I committed to doing. After we sign in once, I think that's going to be it. So,
I just was going to say my business is exactly managing wellness centers, and what we talked about, what Jim just talked about, happens all over the city.
okay, thanks. And again, I'm just trying to run an efficient meeting and keep the discipline going. So, apologize if I offended anybody. But and the other thing I would just ask anybody, just real quick, friendly reminder: turn off your cell phones if you don't mind. Future meetings too. That would work out great. That's it. We're going to move on with the agenda.
I just want to mention silver sneakers to this gentleman, which is free. Will not cost you anything to go up to the community center again.
Thank you. All right. Administrative reports. We're gonna go on to administrative reports. Okay, we're gonna go on to administrative reports. Jim, who would you like to go first?
Mr. Ritter, members of the board, I'm gonna kick off the administrative report tonight, and then I'll circle it around to my team. I'd like to just thank all those residents that gave us an opportunity to come out and talk about issue 3. It is a very important issue to this community. I respect everybody's right to vote how they choose to vote. We're here to carry out the duties and responsibilities of township government based on the means that we have. And if come March 15th, issue 3 goes down, we will move forward and we will earmark every available dollar that we can while protecting our reserves to try to fix our public infrastructure. So we may have some tough decisions ahead of us as it relates to our senior center and our parks, but we've faced tough decisions in the past and we'll do that again. But I appreciate all the opportunities to engage our public. I feel like we've done a much better job this time of educating them on the issue versus what we did with the JEDZ in 2014. And I believe it's up to the voters now to make the decision as to.
And you as well, Mr. Rowan. Your heart has been in this from the beginning. That's obvious. I thought your presentation tonight was as good as it comes. So thank you for your heart and commitment to this. Mr. Birkenauer.
Just a quick comment on the data that Mr. Feuderty brought up. That was 2015 sales data, and that changes many times on an annual basis. If somebody sells a $2 million house in your community, your mean sales data can dramatically vary as a result of that.
And it wasn't based on just townships, too.
Right, right. And to say that we have the lowest property value, I think is very deceiving. We have so many zip codes, and each zip code has an average median income and an average property value. And I would say that some of our zip codes have the highest property values and highest median income as opposed to some other zip codes. So we have a very diverse community, and that's what that's reflective of is just a mere average. That's all I have. Thanks.
Mr. Malloy.
Thank you again. I appreciate the board allowing us to present this evening. Benchmarking, as you stated, Mr. Ritter, it's important to know where you stand within the region. You all received the copies of the updated strategic plan. Mr. Ritter spoke on it. We met with a group of about 20 firefighters and people from our community on February 24th to bring up and update our planning event from January of 2015. The group will come back together in the fall of 2016 and start planning the 2021 plan year. So this is a fluid document, a working group. We appreciate everyone's participation, and it is the vision and the direction of our departments. February 27th, as the board knows, and many in the community, we've been working hard for approximately 14 to 15 months to enhance the relationships we have within the community between our police and fire and our African American community. We were involved and heavily involved with a fashion show, Small Voices Counts, and the Colerain Township Department of Public Safety fashion show that involved 44 children from the region, as well as 26 police, firefighters, Cincinnati police officers, and Hamilton County deputy sheriffs from the Corrections Division. And I want to make sure I acknowledge the men and women from our departments that helped that day. From our fire department, Tyler Seibel, Doug Witzkin, Lindsay Sapola, Jennifer Plogger, and Chief Cook. Yes, Chief Cook was also one of our models. From the police department, Andy McGuffey, AJ Hatcher, Samantha Doe, Sean Mayer, Dean Dorfline, Bobby Taylor, and Lieutenant Owens, Lieutenant Sharp, Nancy Spears, and again, Chief Danny was also one of our models. It was a tremendous day. In fact, yesterday afternoon at 4 o'clock, the Small Voices Count Partnership made a donation to Children's Hospital in the amount of $566.10. While the remaining monies of over $1,000 will go to the Small Voices Count effort to fight against bullying and violence in our schools and our young people. We're very proud of the relationship and the conversations. Phone calls came back. I never knew that Colerain Police and Fire were like of course, you definitely can't move down a runway throwing glitter and confetti, holding the hand of a special needs little girl, and not be seen in a little bit different mode. And they said their statements were, we really have a different perspective of who serves us in Colerain. We're definitely proud of that. And March 10th, Thursday evening at the Colerain Community Center, we will have our event called Focus on Hope. It is a follow-up event from our February 2015, in which we discussed the heroin problem in Colerain Township. This year, we're coming back to meet with our community, to bring them up to date on all the efforts and all the work that's been done for the last 13 plus months with all the partnerships we have. And certainly everyone is welcome to attend. We're hearing that it's going to be well attended. I hope that's true because we have a great panel. And we certainly need to let our community know that this is not something that's being cast aside. We're working very hard to address the issue of the heroin problem. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Chief Cook?
Two quick items. The state of Ohio has implemented a voluntary certification process in response to the law enforcement collaborative established by Governor Kasich to address hiring standards and use of force standards in police departments in Ohio. I was notified Friday that we will be the first agency that has met all their requirements and their standards throughout the entire state, so I'm very proud of that. They'll be coming out to do an on-site sometime next month, but we are the first ones that met all their criteria, and most of that had to do with accreditation because we already had that ready to go, and we were already operating under those standards anyway, but it's nice to be the first in the state to do that. Secondly, we entered into a shared services partnership with Springfield Township, Green Township, Forest Park, Mount Healthy, Green Hills, and North College Hill to secure funding from the state of Ohio to facilitate crime analysis services from the University of Cincinnati School of Criminal Justice Institute of Crime Science.
In short, the funding will allow us to have access to a software package that's valued at about $80,000 on the open market, and monthly collaborations with their PhD students and their staff to talk about predictive policing, different models and different staffing allocations that we could do to increase our services and make our services more efficient. So it's an exciting potential tool that we never would have had as an agency by ourselves, but by joining with our neighbors, we were able to get that and secure that funding.
Chief. Okay. Let's move on to trustees report. Mr. Insco.
All right. Thank you for all the citizens that spoke. I appreciate when people speak with passion and compassion. I had a district advisory council meeting for the Hamilton County Public Health. I just wanted to share a few things that were pointed out to me. Someone in Hamilton County dies every other day from heroin overdose. They had an interesting quote there that they said that you should look at addiction as a disease and not just the fault of the person. That kind of resonated with me. And the best doctors in the world, they were saying, would agree with that. The other thing, they said the average lifespan in Colerain, you'll love this, we're at the higher end. It's in the 70s. So I can appreciate that statistic. The Zika virus, we covered that. It has not, I think Tennessee is the closest it's gotten, but it has not been found here. But if you'd like more information or educational or code enforcement or anything like that, they'll be more than happy to help us. Let's see, where were we at on that? Oh, and then there was an approval for an assessment, and it's based on the value of the community. So obviously, Colerain being so large, we're going to get more service out of it per person than, say, like an Indian Hill would, where you've obviously got a huge property value and not as nearly as many people. So there was it's the same as it was last year. There was no change on that. Next up, I have to congratulate Jessica Moaning. I don't know if you guys watched the news. She was on it the other day. She did her Peru Tower hike. I thought that was pretty awesome. And then not long after that, it was her birthday, and then she got engaged. So it's safe to say she's having an awesome month. My girlfriend and I, we went to the Colerain Historical Society meeting. That was good. They give out food. We should do that here. I think you would all agree with that. Next time we'll provide food and drinks, right? Especially because it's long. Or just go to Frisch's with you, if that's okay. We have we did get a couple citizen complaints about the recycling receptacles outside overflowing. 2 to 3 days a week they come. They increased it one day, but if I'm not mistaken, Frank said after April 1st, we're not going to have them since we provide free recycling. The firehouse will still have it'll still be available for large apartment complexes. That was something I wanted to address. Thank you, Dan, for covering the Small Voices Count. We did that at my dance studio. It was awesome. I mean, it was just an awesome event. Hopefully we can make that an annual event. I wish the news would have gotten more involved with us, but maybe next year we'll get more publicity out of it. The studio it's in Northgate Mall. It's always available for any type of charity event or anything you guys have ideas for or need to raise some money for, or just any kind of charity. We do at least probably one event a month for something, so we would love to have your ideas. Also, the Vineyard Church Northwest is hosting a speaker from Colerain, Ireland at the end of April. And I've never done this before, but I would like to request that we make a proclamation the day he tours the Township building, that we could call that Colerain Ireland Day. And if I'm not mistaken, Frank, I don't mean to call you out here, you were working with the church to set a schedule for him to visit Heritage Park and the Colerain Historical Society. Is that correct? Okay, perfect. Other than that, if you want more information on that, see me afterwards. It's been a long meeting. I won't go into too much detail though. But well, actually, while I'm on this topic, Larry, how do we do that? How do we make a proclamation? Is it the same as a motion, or does someone draft that, or what's the?
I'll have my staff draft something. We've done that historically for different events. In fact, we recognized them either last year or 2 years ago. They had some major 400-year, 200-year anniversary or something a couple years ago. So we'll have something for the next meeting.
Thank you. And also, I do want to commend Trustee Ritter, actually, just for owning it for the last meeting, because it wasn't fair, it wasn't right, and we all make mistakes. He's human just like all of us, and I think how you respond to it's everything, so I do appreciate that. On a more fun note, I don't know if you guys know this, but every February 14th, White Castle has a server. Now, I know it sounds funny to bring up a national chain at a local meeting, but it was neat, some of the community-oriented things that they do there, karaoke nights and whatnot. So if anyone's looking for a cheap date, I think our date was like $12 at White Castle on Valentine's Day. It's a server. It was a neat thing. And last but not least, Aaron Keller is going to be an Eagle Scout. So I want to recognize Aaron. I think it's an awesome accomplishment. Thank you.
Mr. Andrews.
A couple of things. I'd like to congratulate Colerain boys bowling. They advanced to districts recently and also were GMC champs. Also, Colerain swimming, they had 3 of their student athletes who advanced to state. I'd like to congratulate them. Trustee Insko had mentioned more recent crime data and benchmarking. I did want to point out that that data is there and it's available. So far this year, I'm happy to report that in Colerain Township, violent crimes are down, I believe, 20% so far this year for the first 2 months. I'd like to congratulate the QRT team with their successes so far since the program began. There is that update that Director Malloy mentioned. It's this Thursday, I believe, 6:30 to 8:30 at the community center. I'd really encourage everybody to take the time to come to the meeting, whether it's for 30 minutes or an hour or the whole portion, just to get an idea of what they've done, what the successes have been, and what the challenges ahead are. Whether or not you want to think that there's a problem in the community with heroin, there is. There's no denying that. And even if it hasn't affected your family or somebody that you know, the crime definitely affects your property value. So heroin and the opiate epidemic does touch everybody in some way. In regards to the upcoming levy, I will say as a voter, as a father, and as a taxpayer, I will be voting for it. I respect everybody's decision as to their position on the levy, and I would just encourage everybody to show up to the polls and vote. It's a great right in this country to be able to vote. I think it's important that you make sure you take that effort to go to the poll and vote come next Tuesday. That's all I have.
All right. As for myself tonight, the hour is late, so I'm not going to harp on issue 3 anymore too much, except to I wanted to just observe something Mr. Jansen said in his colorful language tonight. I appreciated the fact that he trusts us. I realize there's a lot of mistrust in government. Believe me, I do. This is my 11th year on the board, and we've worked extremely hard during that period to build up credibility with you, to offer dashboards online, and to offer Waycross so people can view our meetings. He mentioned millions of numbers and facts, and I spent an incredible amount of time at this job when I'm not in my day job, looking at numbers and looking at the facts and working with Mr. Rowan and our team, so we have the credibility. And so I just bristle a little bit when when I hear us lobbed in with, maybe the federal government, which, has $18 trillion in debt and counting. We don't have all the levers to push and pull like the federal government does and even the state government does. The property taxes are the only vehicle we have these days to pay for our government. And as God is my witness, I truly respect you if you decide to vote against this thing and say, Mr. Ritter, I hear you, it's just not working for me. That's fine. What I would ask, though, is that we have to accept the result. The result is going to be our roads won't be fixed as fast. We may have to close a park. I don't know. That's down the road. And our senior center may suffer or close. Those are choices I don't want to have to make. But to believe that we can just, spend down reserves and Rumpke money as a silver bullet, to fix all of our problems, is just not realistic. And so what I'm trying to say is I'm trying to have an honest conversation with you. I don't claim to be the best trustee of all time or the smartest or anything else. I have tried to have an honest conversation with people in the entire time I've been here. And I've made statements like, I'm a common sense conservative. I'm going to use taxes as a last resort, not a first resort. And we've done that. If you go back to 2011, the parade of horribles, the sheriff leaves us and sticks us with a huge bill. We had a historically bad recession, which hurt receipts. And most of all, the state cuts by eliminating the estate tax and the local government fund. You can't just, magically turn around and make up that revenue that's lost. I wish you could. I abhor taxes as much as anybody else. I'm a conservative Republican, and I'm proud of it. I guess what I'm trying to say is I appreciated Mr. Jansen's comments tonight because he's one of the first people that's come up in a long time and said, I trust you. You have credibility with me. And that means a little bit to me because a lot of times I think the truth and the facts get drowned out by a select few. And so we have a choice to make on March 15th. I'll accept whatever verdict that is, and we'll move on. The Rumpke money will offer us, more flexibility than we've had in the past, but it's not a silver bullet that's going to solve all our problems. Will it fix some of the hole? Absolutely. That's why the levy's only 2 mills. Anyway, I'm just repeating now what everybody else has said. That's not productive. So I'd ask us to move on to new business, public safety.
Before that, would you consider maybe a few moments of recess?
Sure. I'd like to offer a motion for a 5-minute recess.
Mr. Ritter?
Aye.
Mr. Underhies?
Aye.
Mr. Inslee?
Aye. Okay, Mr. Malloy.
Thank you. First item, recommend the Board of Trustee approval of a resolution to dispose of a 1995 Ford Explorer. As the Chief presented in his presentation, this is one of those vehicles that's over 20 years old and is now cost more to repair and maintain than it is in value. Specifically, I ask the Board's approval of a resolution for disposal by sale of vehicle, value less than $2,500, and equipment which are obsolete, unfit, or unneeded for public use, according to the Ohio Revised Code, Section 50510, a 1995 Ford Explorer. Ask for the Board's approval.
Motion to approve. Second.
Mr. Underhies?
Aye.
Mr. Inslee?
Aye.
Mr. Ritter?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, the fire department has 2 items for the board to consider this evening. The first one being a recommendation for a part-time pay rate change for firefighter paramedic Michael Davis, who's been promoted to firefighter paramedic fire apparatus operator at an hourly rate of $16.98, effective March 13, 2016.
Chair will make a motion to approve.
Second.
Mr. Underhies?
Aye.
Mr. Inslee?
Aye.
Mr. Ritter?
Aye.
Okay, the second recommendation for approval is also a part-time rate change for firefighter paramedic Stephen Schmidt, who's also been promoted to firefighter paramedic fire apparatus operator at an hourly rate of $16.98, effective March 13, 2016.
Chair will make a motion to approve. Second.
Mr. Underhies?
Aye.
Mr. Inslee?
Aye.
Mr. Ritter?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Recommend the Board's approval to purchase 2 2016 Ford Police Interceptor sedans at a total cost of $55,414. And this cost will be partially offset by trading of 2 older vehicles for approximately $12,000. Point of note, these 2 vehicles were requested as part of our 2016 capital budget plan that was approved. Some changes were made at the county level for communications that raised our dispatch fees from $19.22 to $20.95 an hour, which required us to take 2 of those vehicles off of our request in January. The board did approve the 4 vehicles in January. On February 19th, the Communications Center announced they're going to reduce the rates to $15 an hour for the remainder of the year. Now, that's going to allow me to keep $89,000 of my communication costs back where they belong, which is why we're making the request tonight.
Chief, I understand the math, and I understand the request, and I intend to support it tonight. But what I would say is that the county plugged that hole by using cash reserves. They didn't magically come up with a new revenue stream. They decided to borrow from the rainy day fund and fund it that way. So what that means is we're going to have a problem next year. They're structurally imbalanced, and the shoe could drop next year. So I'm just saying, you got to pay the piper sometime. So if we find ourselves next year and you got a drastically bigger comm center bill, you may have to have only 0 cruisers or only 2.
I understand. And that's the discussion we had about as far as how do you do anything with staff
right.
or personnel. You can't make a decision based on what might happen with another agency. So we have a very clear understanding that this might.
And I understand the ones you're replacing are draining us on maintenance, and it makes good, it's a business case that you can make. No problem. I'm just saying the other shoe could drop next year.
And we are investigating other areas that we might do our communication costs with. So we are.
Make a motion to approve. Second.
Mr. Underhies?
Aye.
Mr. Inslee?
Aye.
Mr. Ritter?
Aye.
Request the board's approval to accept a $500 donation from Mr. Bob Stenger, owner of Cincinnati Mining Machinery on John Rose Avenue. This is a donation to assist our K-9 program.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Underhies?
Aye.
Mr. Inslee?
Aye.
Mr. Ritter?
Aye.
And finally, request the board's approval to accept the resignation and settlement agreement with Nicholas McCarthy effective March 9th, 2016.
So moved.
I'll second.
Mr. Inderhees?
Aye.
Mr. Insco?
Aye.
Mr. Ritter?
Aye.
Thank you.
Public Services.
Recommend board approval, hiring the following individuals as part-time seasonal employees at an hourly rate of $11 per hour, not to exceed 1,500 hours per year. 12 parking permit employees and 6 public service maintenance employees. Please keep in mind, several of these employees may only work 1 hour a week, or 1 day a week. The rate would be at $11 per hour. The effective date would be immediate, and the work would be on an as-needed basis.
How many more positions do we need to fill still?
We are looking to hire at least 15 in the public service maintenance employee area. And we can obviously use more parking permit employees, as many of these employees only want to work 1 day or very minimal hours.
Well, the crowd's thinning out, but if you're watching at home and you know
Yes,
that
we
it
are
wants-
hiring.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you for that. I'll make the motion.
I'm sorry, Mr. Barbier, do we need to read the names for the record?
No,
No, okay.
not a seasonal.
Do you need me to still make the motion?
You made the motion, that's great, thank you.
Sheriff.
Second.
I'd just like to make one comment. Keep in mind, regardless of the numbers we hire, we have a fixed budget. So if we work fewer people, we'll have to work them longer. We have to be a little careful of ACA rules there. So we have a fixed budget. So even if we come back next month and add 8 or 10 more, it's not going to change that budget number. We have a budget that we need to maintain our summer mowing.
I believe there was a second. Can you call the roll, please?
Yes. Mr. Inderhees?
Aye.
Mr. Insco?
Aye.
Mr. Ritter?
Aye.
Second item, requests board's authorization to establish bid specifications and proceed to bid for road resurfacing at a cost not to exceed $2,250,000. Recommend utilizing $1 million in reserve funds plus $1,250,000 from Rumpke for road resurfacing. Issue 3 funding, if approved, won't be available until 2017.
So we're using $1 million out of cash reserves.
Yes.
I don't have a problem with that. Understand we're doing it. The Rumpke money gives us strategic flexibility, so if issue 3 does fail, we can recoup it next year. But that means that there's no resurfacing next year, or at least not to that degree. So just to understand, the Financial Advisory Committee is going to take on a project to tell us what the adequate sweet spot is for a general fund balance. And if it's $4-ish million, which is what it is now, I am not in favor of being structurally misaligned next year. So I'll make a motion to approve this. Again, the Rumpke settlement money offers us the flexibility to recoup this next year. Or we may just decide $3 million is the right cash balance. But nevertheless, we're spending money, spending down our reserves, like the opponents of this issue, ask us to do. Nevertheless, I'll make a motion to approve.
If I can ask, do we have a timeline on when they're going to vacate Hughes Road so we can get the additional, was it 400,000? Close.
We really don't, that's something that we have to do. We're going to have to do an agreement with Rumpke, actually, and the lawyers for Rumpke. And we're actually just finishing up the lawsuit now, so that'll be the next step after that happens. The reason for that is that there are houses that abut Hughes Road, and they need Hughes Road in order to, ingress and egress, so we can't just willy-nilly vacate it without making some provision for that.
So this could carry on for years, theoretically.
No, it won't be that long.
You don't think so?
No, I think, my hope is we can do it before the end of this year.
Okay. Sooner the better.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Inderhees?
Aye.
Mr. Insco?
Aye.
Mr. Ritter?
Aye.
Two items for zoning this evening. First is recommended approval of a resolution to release all township liens, assessments, penalties, and interest against 10271 October Drive. This resolution is being recommended due to a lag between the first abatement, which occurred June 16th, 2015, and the time of the first assessment, which occurred in September of 2015. Additionally, property ownership was transferred in June of 2015, and no new owner notification was made before the second abatement occurred August 25th, 2015. For your reference, this property was declared a nuisance by this Board of Trustees on June 2nd, 2015.
So moved.
Second.
Aye.
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 And secondly, a request for a public hearing for case number ZA 1998-01, which is a major modification to a final development plan. The zoning commission is expected to make a recommendation on this major modification for a property located at 9343 Colerain Avenue at their March 15th, 2016 regular meeting. This modification item would require a public hearing to be held in front of this Board of Trustees within 30 days of that recommendation. This major modification is to replace the current Show Me's building with a new Discount Tire building.
Real quick, you said 1998 on here. It's 2016. Is that correct?
No, sir. 1998 is correct. The original case file for the planned district was 1998. So this is actually modifying a file from 1998.
Make sure it wasn't a typo. Thank you.
So what date did you propose for the public hearing?
This will be for,
This is the next regularly scheduled.
yes, I'm sorry, the next regularly scheduled meeting, which I believe is April 12th.
Okay, is there a motion for April 12th?
Make a motion.
Second.
Mr. Enderby?
Aye.
Mr. Rinsco?
Aye.
Mr. Ritter?
Aye.
Mr. Ritter, members of the board, yep, it's my turn. I'd like to recommend approval of the 2016 appropriation resolutions in the amount of $32,058,924 as approved by the Financial Advisory Committee. We are requesting an additional $1,651,571 for road resurfacing for 2016. $1,250,000 as a result of the Rumpke settlement. The remaining $401,571 is to replenish the $1 million that was previously allocated for 2016 that was used for a 2015 road project. So let me explain a little bit. So when we passed the temporary appropriations in December, the board earmarked $1 million in reserves for 2016 road improvements. What we didn't realize until recently is that our previous Public Works Director did not encumber funds for the 2015 road program. Therefore, when we found that out, we opened the purchase order in 2016. It took that away from that reserve. So the board had previously allocated money for the 2015 program. It just never got encumbered. So what this allows us to do is bring back the full $1 million as was intended, plus add the Rumpke settlement, and give us a jump start on our roads.
Chair will make a motion to approve.
Second.
Mr. Enderby?
Aye.
Mr. Rinsco?
Aye.
Mr. Ritter?
Aye.
Carries. Resolution approves.
Next item is to recommend approval of the lease agreement with the Little Cards Youth Program. As included in your packet, we talked about this earlier tonight. It's a result of a default agreement with the Groesbeck Civic Association and our intent to work with the Little Cards as a result of the land tract, the transaction involving Groesbeck Park.
Make the motion. Second.
Mr. Enderby?
Aye.
Mr. Rinsco?
Aye.
Aye.
My last item is to approve service agreements for township waste containers. Recommend approval of service agreements with Rumpke of Ohio for waste containers for township properties effective April 1, 2016 through March 31, 2019 pursuant to the terms and conditions of the agreement. We obtained updated pricing from Republic, who is our current provider, and Rumpke. Rumpke came in lower. Just to give you a little history, about a year and a half ago, we made the transition from Rumpke to Republic and saved about $10,000 a year. Now we did the bid again, and they came in even lower than what Republic was at. They've also agreed to lock the rates in for 3 years. So that's the purpose of this
Make a
agreement.
motion to approve.
Chair will second.
Mr. Enderby?
Aye.
Mr. Rinsco?
Aye.
Mr. Ritter?
Aye.
That concludes the administration report.
Mrs. Harlow.
I'd like to ask for the board's usual approval of payroll purchase orders and receipts.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Enderby?
Aye.
Mr. Rinsco? Mr. Ritter?
Aye.
And also ask for the board's approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of February 9th, 2016.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Interhees?
Aye.
Mr. Insco?
Aye.
Mr. Ritter?
Aye.
That's all I have. Thank you, you hardy souls, for sticking with us this evening.
Motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Mr. Interhees?
Aye.
Mr. Insco?
Aye.
Mr. Ritter?
Aye. Have a nice evening.
Have a good night, guys.